because we've got Nate on the line.
Yep.
So we're good to go. All right. Good afternoon. This is the March 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Landmark Preservation Commission, and I will call this meeting to order. All right, let's start with introductions of the commissioners. And since I'm already chatting, I'll go ahead and start. My name is Kelly Wemple. I'm the chair. I'm an architect, and I was nominated by the American Institute of Architects. Next, we have Jeanette.
Hi, Jeanette Chapman. I'm an attorney and historic district resident nominated by History Colorado.
Great. Brad.
My name is Brad Gassman. I'm an architect nominated by History Colorado.
Thanks, Aaron.
I am Erin Hummel. I'm a landscape architect, and I'm nominated by the American Society of Landscape Architects.
Thanks, Aaron. Graham. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, I even clicked it, dang it. I'm Graham Johnson, Historic Preservation Project Manager and nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
Great. Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie Johnson. I am a Preservation Project Manager, and I was nominated from the community at large.
Thanks. And Anne.
Ann Wattenberg. I'm an architect nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
Jen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, sorry. I'm Jen Capetto. I'm Landmark Preservation staff.
Thanks. All right. So today, I believe we didn't have anything on any meeting records up for approval, so we'll keep moving forward. Next up, at the beginning of every Landmark Preservation Commission meeting, we reserve some time for general public comments. This is not the time to talk about any comments you have for projects that are on today's agenda, but if you have any comments that you want to give about preservation in general, this is the time to speak up. So if you're in person, it sounds like we have one person in person at the Wellington Web Building today, then just let the staff member know when you'd like to make a comment today. If you're joining us by computer, you can use the raise hand function at any time whenever you want to make a public comment throughout the meeting. And then if you're calling in by phone, it sounds like we've got one person on the line who is, if you could email landmark@denvergov.org to let us know what project you'd like to comment on and your phone number, then we can go ahead and unmute you during that time to make a comment. So with that said, is there anyone present today who would like to make a public comment?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay.
We haven't received any emails.
Great. And you said there was one person at the web building?
No, we have Evan, our staff member, is at the web building, and he moved.
Oh.
Yeah, no, he's
Gotcha.
yeah.
I thought you meant Evan saw one person come in. Okay.
Nope. Sorry about that.
Never mind. Misunderstood. All right. Well, if we don't have any public comments, let's go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. So we have, oops, I'm just pulling it up here. We've got 4 projects on the consent agenda today. Did commissioners have any questions for staff, or would you like to remove any of these from the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I will recuse myself just by virtue of involvement with one of the projects for the consent agenda, if that's
Okay.
all right.
Thanks, Graham.
Thanks.
Okay, and for the record, I am moving Graham over to be an attendee, so he can't speak or be visual to influence your vote.
Okay. I was really worried about that, Graham. Anne, did I see you raise your hand?
Yes, I have a question for the staff about COA 2019 COA-535-3393 West 30th Avenue. And my question is, as I understand it, this application was for an administrative adjustment that had been turned down by the zoning department. And I am just wondering whether we have approved administrative adjustments through the consent agenda before.
Abby. This was my project. I believe we've approved them to do the consent agenda. Staff all felt this was a pretty straightforward. It was mainly just something that they forgot to put on their initial application. I mean, so it's a standard administrative adjustment for dormers, which is something that the commission has approved often in the past. Generally, this would have been included as part of the initial request, and you would have reviewed it as either part of the mass form and context or design details. It just got overlooked and wasn't in that application, which is why now it's kind of coming back to, kind of tie that up.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there's no further discussion or concerns about the projects on the consent agenda, would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair.
Madam,
Oh, go ahead, Brad.
okay. Madam Chair, I'll make the motion. I move to approve 2021-COA-056, 2630 Curtis Street, 2021-COA-057, 940 East 5th Avenue, 2020-COA-110, 18300 West Alameda Parkway, and 2019-COA-535, 3393 West 30th Avenue for the March 2nd consent agenda.
Thank you, Brad. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second it. This is Julie.
Thank you, Julie. All right, then I will call for the vote. Jeanette,
Hi.
Brad,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
and Kelly. Aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the consent agenda is approved. So if anyone is on the call for any of the projects that were on the consent agenda, feel free to leave the meeting. Your project has been approved. All right, so let's move forward. We have one public hearing today.
And also for the record, Graham is back.
Thank you. Great. All right, so we have one public hearing today. And this is the process for public hearings that you can see up on the screen. So I'll go ahead and announce the public hearing. Then if anyone has a conflict of interest, the commissioners will mention that at that time so they can recuse themselves. Staff is going to introduce the application. Then after that, the applicant will have up to 10 minutes to present. And following that, we will hear public comments, and the public comment period is 3 minutes per person for this. So once we've heard all of the public comments, we're going to close the hearing and deliberate. So the hearing on today's agenda is it's 2020-LM Demo-406. The address is 2847 Stout Street. And we've got Crystal.
Yep, thanks. So this is the property at 2847 Stout Street.
I'm sorry, Crystal, I think I forgot to say I open the public hearing. So if we need that formally announced, I'll now open the public hearing.
Okay, thanks. So the property at 2847 Stout Street is located in the Curtis Park F Historic District. It was built approximately 1887 and it is a one-story side gabled structure. Staff became aware of issues with the foundation of the rear portion of the structure after a stop work order was issued in June of 2020 last year. At the time, the applicant was in the process of digging out a new basement for the structure without permits. To the left on the screen, you can see a Google Street view of the structure. And in the center is a land survey plat showing the overall lot and structure. And then that far right picture is showing the 58% of the structure that is proposed to be demolished with this application. So when more than 40% of a contributing structure is proposed for demolition, this is what triggered the public hearing for today. The designation application for Curtis Park F Historic District does map this property as contributing, though the structure has been heavily altered over time and has lost much of its integrity, but no other information about the house was included in the designation to look at. So these are photos of the front facade provided by the applicant, as well as a plan drawing by one of the engineers who's inspected this property. According to the applicant, a total of 7 engineers have come out to inspect the foundation and the property. 3 of those engineer letters were included in this demolition application for you, as well as a letter from the applicant describing what the other engineers stated. According to all of the structural engineers that looked at the property, all the letters that I saw and information I was provided showed that the rear portion of the structure, which is that inset back half, is just in really poor condition and is structurally unsafe and basically on the verge of collapse. I think they've already installed some shoring to keep it from collapsing so far. So here's some more photos of the rear portion of the structure that also were provided by the applicant. Guideline 2.55 states that you should not demolish contributing structures to a historic district. Take all measures required to repair and retain the contributing structure to protect the community interest in its preservation, preserve the essential form and integrity of historic buildings and structures, avoid demolition that changes the overall appearance, massing, and volume of historic building as perceived from public vantage points. So the applicant is proposing to retain the front portion of the contributing structure that will be visible from the street. The demolition will preserve the readily visible essential form of the structure and will avoid changing its overall appearance, massing, and volume from the street. Furthermore, the demolition will not demolish any character defining features of the historic property, and the historic addition currently is not visible from the street, and this will help minimize demolition to the front part of the structure that is most visible. And so that visible facade and front portion of the building will be saved. And in the structure's current condition, staff believes that tearing down the rear portion of the structure, which is not visible from the street, is necessary for safety reasons and to save the front portion of the contributing structure so that the house does not collapse. So staff is recommending approval with the condition that a replacement addition is approved prior to the demolition of the rear portion of the structure. That's it.
Thanks, Crystal. Are there any questions for staff? No? All right. Is the applicant present, and could we promote them to be presenter?
I will do that right now. Hang on.
Great. And just for both the applicant and the public members who are here about this project, right now we're only reviewing the demolition. So if this is approved, we will then review the design portion. So
I only see Charles Booker, the other.
Yes, his hand's raised. It's fine.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Just for everyone else, it throws the order off for us. It takes them out of alpha order. That's why.
Oh. We also have Kong Fong. He's the owner, so he should be there too.
And while you're promoting all of them to be presenters, when you are ready, go ahead and unmute yourself. Please start with your name and address for the record for all of those who want to talk during that 10-minute period. And you will have up to 10 minutes.
They are both moved over.
Great. Start when you're ready.
Yes, this is Charles Booker, the project designer. I'm not sure if I'm coming through on audio.
Yep.
I am, great. And then I will go ahead and wait for my client, Kong Palm, to chime in with any comments he might have. And I'll be here for any backup support that he may want, or you may want.
Great. And Charles, can you give your address for the record?
Yes, 12081 West Alameda Parkway, Lakewood, Colorado.
Thank you.
And Kong, I think you're muted if you're not aware.
Can you see me, anyone?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, yes, my name is Kong Palm. I'm the owner of property on 2847 Stout.
Go ahead. You have up to 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. I bought this property because I own a restaurant around Denver. I have a few restaurants. I have 6 restaurants that is called Thai Monkey Club. And I'm opening 4 more beyond Thai, which is the reason I bought this property was close to between 2 of my restaurants. One of them was on 1030 East 22nd. So it's about 22nd and Downing. And I also, trying to purchase a building on 35th and Larimer. So this house was right between the 2 restaurants. And when I purchased, a lot of time when I purchase property without looking at it, so I didn't even care about the property, the condition, because we just don't clean it up and have my employees stay in. In the future, 4 or 5 years, and when I'm ready to sell, that's when I'm going to renovate and sell it. But that was in the future plans. And when we look at it, we found more and more problem with the structures. And that's when, we have Dan Neal, he was a structural engineering, look at it. And he told me, say the back is total unsafe, it's not structural unsafe. And we need to demo the whole. The first time he wanted us to demo the whole house. And I didn't want to do that. I don't want to, I want to save and do as little as possible. But it's not the case. So I have to let him go because that's what he told the city. That's what he told Margus, the landmark. So I have many structural engineering look at it and give me opinions. I see the neighbor. We met with the neighbor. His name is Keith. 2 times. And he recommended that I call Historic Denver and trying to get a contact with structural engineering. There's 4 names on the list. One of them been handled. The other ones, he worked for the 2 architecture that I got the letter for. So I have 2 structural engineering from what Historic Denver recommended. And all of them recommend that I demo the whole house. And I was trying to save the front portion of it. And then, for me, just to demo the back, it doesn't make sense. I need to build, 2nd or 3rd level, but just to make it, to keep it historic, not visible from the front. So I want to keep everything the same, just to demo it out and rebuild. So I try everything possible to keep the front and the back. But 7 structural engineering told me is unsafe. At least the minimum I have to do is the back portion. So that's what I'm planning to do, is to get approval from the landmark, from the neighbor, to demo the back half and then rebuild it, trying to save as much as possible. I think that's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for the applicants? Don't see anybody. So I think everything's clear. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Since there aren't any questions for the applicant, we'll go ahead and move forward with public comments. Is there anyone? Oh,
Just,
yeah.
I don't think we got Mr. Pham's address for the record.
Yes, 1704 Aspen Street in Broomfield, Colorado 80020.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, let's move into the public comment period. Is there anyone on the line who would like to make a comment on this project or
Yeah,
the
we have
demolition?
We have Keith Pryor, and by the way, we don't have anyone on the phone at the moment anymore. So Keith, I am going to, allow you to speak. You can unmute whenever you're ready.
And please start with your name and address. You have up to 3 minutes.
Great. Hi, Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, Denver, Colorado, 80205. We have been working with the applicant periodically on this. A little bit of backstory from his existing neighbor. This was listed via Redfin, and he bought it from an intermediator. And in the comments on Redfin, in public record, it showed that there was a $75,000 credit that would be given the structural condition of the home. Now, this did not go to Mr. Pham himself because he bought it from the person who purchased it originally and took that $75,000 credit. Mr. Pham did not buy the property sight seen, or he bought it sight unseen. And he didn't do his due diligence on this to know that there was significant structural issues with the property that were properly credited through the buying process, but he didn't even look online to see what the issues were. So, you know, we do feel that this is a compromise to where we still do salvage the front facade and the front home itself. I know that we are losing the back portion of the house, but it is a good compromise. It still does allow us the historic character of the front of the building. And so we definitely begrudgingly will recommend approval pending the approval of the plans for the addition. But again, you know, this house could easily been saved. There was a $75,000 credit for the structural issues that do need to be taken care of to maintain the property. And so it's just unfortunate that we are here, but we will support the demolition of the rear of the property in order to save the front. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Are there any other public comments?
Yep, Sue Glassmacher. Let me see. I've allowed you to talk, so you can unmute whenever you're ready, Sue.
Hi, Sue Glassmacher, 1037 29th Street, Curtis Park, and I am Keith's second. I have a question about the app. I got a little confused on what was the original building material on the walls that is being taken down. Somewhere in there they mentioned that there was a single layer of brick, and then it says that, and then the staff Crystal says that it's a frame house. I'm very confused on what it is, and would just like to know what's going on, what's the material that's being taken down, and would like to know what the material is on the front too. But I also wonder if it was a frame house that had a brick veneer, because that's, you know, that would reconcile some of the something in the engineer's report and it would reconcile the Sanborn map. So that's what I want to know and question. That's it for me. No problem with the demolition. I understand this one.
Thank you, Sue. Do we want to address that now? I actually had the same question, but I was going to ask it in the design submittal if we got there. I don't know if we want to talk about that now or.
The applicant's also raised his hand, so we can allow him to answer that if you'd like, or Crystal can.
Are there other public comments, or is now a good time to talk about this?
I don't see any other public comments.
Okay.
Right? No one else has raised their hand other than Stu and the property owner, Mr. Pham.
Okay. Crystal, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, so I was actually going to address that more in the addition and ADU as well, but it did say there was one with a brick and these engineer letters. However, from the 1890 Sanborn color maps we saw, it did call it out as frame. So my guess is maybe it was one brick width and it had frame on it. It's really hard to tell. I provided all the information I could possibly find in the staff report for the addition ADU so that we're all looking at the same information, but really I'm not 100% positive either way.
Okay.
There's no older pictures that show us.
And since the applicant didn't use his full 10 minutes, Kong, if you have anything to add to that question as to whether there is or is not brick at the front of the house.
Yes, the front of the house is a single brick, and then the front of it was covered by stucco.
Okay.
The back portion it looked like it was built on later. It was a frame 2x4. Outside was 2x4 and covered by wire net and stucco.
Okay.
And inside just the drywall.
Okay. Thank you. All
Thank you.
right, so that answers that question. So if there aren't any further public comments, then we'll go ahead and close the public comment period and move into deliberation.
Still has her hand up. Did you have more to say, Sue? It sounded like you just had that question.
But I think, did she have time left or?
Yeah, she had time left.
Okay.
Okay. Your hand is down now. All right, I'll mute you now. Okay, thanks.
All right. And if it's pertaining to the design, that's coming next. We're only reviewing the demolition at this time. All right, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move into deliberation. What did everyone think?
I'll jump in and start. I think this wins records for the most structural engineering letters. I appreciated the thoroughness there, and also the consistency of the findings. I think that was helpful in evaluating this. So, I, in general, understand and feel like retaining that street-facing facade is a benefit in spite of the balance of all the other reconstruction, or I shouldn't say facade, the whole historic portion of the house. So that was my take on it.
Thanks, Graham.
Madam Chair, I agree with Graham. It was very thorough. And I think it is a nice compromise, as Keith mentioned. And so I would support staff's recommendation on this.
Thanks, Julie. I'm seeing some nodding heads. I agree with everything that's been said from Graham and Julie. If there aren't any other comments, does someone want to make a motion?
I can make the motion.
Great.
Madam Chair, I move to conditionally approve application number 2020-LMDEMO for the 58% demolition of 2847 Stout Street as per design guidelines 2.55, 2.57, character defining features for the Curtis Park Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following condition: approval of replacement addition prior to demolition of the rear portion of the existing structure.
Thank you, Anne. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Graham. All right, I will call for the vote. Jeanette,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Kelly, aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the application is approved, or conditionally approved, I should say. Okay, that was our only public hearing today, so we're going to go ahead and move into the design review projects. And as you can see on the screen, the process is very similar to the public hearing. Staff will introduce the project, then the applicant will have up to 10 minutes to present. Then we'll have a public comment period. The difference here is that you have up to 2 minutes per person for public comment. And once that's done, we'll move into deliberation and vote. So first up on the agenda today is the same project, or the same address, I should say. It's 2021-COA-064 at 2847 Stout Street. Great. Crystal?
Great, thanks, Kelly. So again, we're looking at 2847 Stout Street, located in the Curtis Park F Historic District, built approximately 1887, which is a one-story side gabled frame structure according to the 1890 Sanborn maps. And it's about 15 feet, 8.5 inches tall, and is considered contributing to the district. This slide's just showing some photos of the front and rear of the existing primary structure, as well as the proposed site plan for the new addition and a proposed new ADU with a one-car garage. The current proposal includes the new rear addition to replace the existing one. The one-story rear addition will largely follow the footprint of the existing addition and tie into the roof line as it does now, just below the ridge line of the side gabled front portion of the roof. And the applicant is also proposing a 6-foot rear yard fence. And since a little bit about the house came up in the first one, I just wanted to go over that in this application for this house, there really wasn't a lot of historic material or information to go over. Everything that I could find, I included in kind of the appendix of the staff report. So I included all of the Sanborn maps I could find, as well as a 1976 photo I found of the property where it was already covered in stucco. And then a photo that was provided by the RNO that didn't have a date on it when I received it, but obviously was a very early photo from kind of far away of the streetscape. And you can see from Sanborn maps that the front porch that's on here now is not original to the structure. It was added sometime between 1925 and 29. And you can tell in the earlier photo that the applicant, or I'm sorry, the RNO provided that the house has kind of a lighter color than the other houses nearby that were likely brick. So this is kind of why with the Sanborn map and then the lighter color in that photo, I was going with that I believe it was a frame structure. And there were a few frame structures at the time. So even if it had somewhat of brick on it, maybe they had the frame on the outside and only the one width of brick, I'm not sure. So that's kind of where we tried to find everything. So I just wanted to give that little bit of background. So here you can see the demolition plan as we just saw for the existing structure at the rear, and the new proposed floor plan for the rear addition. So the new addition will be made a bit wider, going from 14 feet wide to 18 foot 6 inches. And the addition will be 1 story and roughly the same length as the existing rear portion of the house, just a foot or so longer. So here's the existing and proposed front facade of the primary structure. The applicant is proposing to reclad the entire primary structure in a smooth hardy board lap siding with a 4-inch reveal, which would give the look of an original frame structure, which the 1890 Sanborn maps called out that it was. All of the windows on the house were already previously changed on this structure, and the openings have been altered over time. From that earlier RNO photo that was provided, it looked like there were taller windows characteristic of Curtis Park at the front, as well as potentially a transom window above the door. However, later alterations changed those window openings in those windows. So the applicant is proposing 2 new double hung 3/3x6 aluminum clad wood windows to replace the existing ones that are better match historic proportions. And they'll also be replacing the non-original existing door with a new half-light door, and they also are adding a new wall light. These proposed changes to the primary structure bring the structure closer to contributing status and are overall compatible with the district and surrounding context. So staff is supportive of these changes at the front. So here you can see the existing and proposed addition for the primary structure, as well as the proposed ADU design for the west elevation. The rear addition is proposed to be clad in that smooth lap siding, and windows on this side of the addition are proposed to be aluminum clad wood awning windows. These windows won't be visible at all from the public right of way due to the proximity of adjacent structures and the inset of the addition. Therefore, staff feels these atypical proportions for these particular windows are acceptable. And then here you can see the existing and proposed addition for the east elevation and for the ADU. The rear addition windows are proposed to be the aluminum clad wood double hung at this elevation, which are more common to the district. And here you can also see the ADU. And then this is also the rear of the addition. So the rear elevation is proposed to have a half-light door, as well as a new siding glass doors and a concrete patio at the rear. The rear facing gable ends proposed to have these decorative shake shingles in the gable end with a circular attic vent. The applicant's also proposing to replace the entire roof with a new Owens Corning Duration asphalt shingle, which is in kind to an existing asphalt roof, so that seems fine. Although the new addition will be clad in the same siding as the original structure, it will be inset on the side elevations, and it'll have these decorative shake shingles in the rear gable end, as well as kind of different window proportions from the front. So we think that these things will help differentiate it from the original portion of the structure. And since this is at the rear of the house and not at all visible from the street, staff is supportive of the shingles that were chosen by the applicant. So this is the front and rear facades of the new proposed ADU with the floor plans. It's proposed to be a flat roof structure at a height of 20 feet 5 inches, and will also be clad in that hardy board lap siding with a 4-inch reveal. And they've also proposed a brick veneer at the second floor, kind of at the front of the ADU and wrapping the sides. And then there's a 4-inch wide wood trim band between the first and second floors. Windows are proposed to be awning windows with some atypical proportions at the side elevations, as well as casement windows at the front and rear of the ADU. The proposed ADU will be compatible with the primary structure in the historic context in terms of mass and material construction, except for the brick veneer at the second floor, which staff is not supportive of, and the overly decorative cornice, which you can kind of see on the left side. Staff recommends that the brick veneer just be changed to the smooth lap siding to match the rest of the structure and the primary structure, and just to simplify the metal cornice design to something a little less detailed. And then finally here you can see that the new ADU kind of in in view with the other houses nearby on the block. So like I said, it's a 20-foot high, 5 inches, which is approximately 4 feet, 8.5 inches taller than the primary structure, which stands at 15 feet, 9 inches. The ADU will be set back approximately 81 feet from the front of the zone lot and will be minimally visible from the street. Other ADUs that I looked at that are behind 1 to 1.5 story structures that have been approved in Curtis Park, such as 2616 Stout, which was approved at 20 feet 5 inches behind a 1.5 story structure, and 2828 California, which had an ADU approved at 24 feet in height behind a 1 story 19-foot high structure, making the height above the original structure approximately 5 feet, similar to this ADU. And both of these were approved in the last year. So although the directly adjacent primary structures are 1 story in height, they are a bit taller than this primary structure. And there's also 2-story primary structures on the block, standing approximately 23 to 24 feet in height, as you can see here. So therefore, staff is recommending approval of the application with the following conditions specific to the ADU. That they eliminate the brick veneer at the 2nd floor and clad it in the smooth lap siding to match the rest of the structure. 2, that they simplify the metal cornice at the roof line. 3, that they change the windows at the 2nd floor to be 1/1 double hung windows to match district proportions, since the 2nd floor windows will be more highly visible. And 4, that the casement windows are required to be the simulated divided light with a spacer bar or double hung windows. And that's it.
Thanks, Crystal. Are there any questions for staff? Yeah, Anne.
Crystal, I have a question. Does the ADU require an administrative adjustment? It's just a little unclear in order.
I don't believe that it does, no, because Curtis Park does allow for 2-story. And I think you can kind of see the bulk plane in this picture, but it doesn't look like it pierces it in any way. So I think it doesn't need those here.
Can you look at sheet A5?
What was that, Anne?
Can you look at sheet A5?
Sure.
Just as a heads up, and Curtis Park, there's an overlay, conservation overlay that allows for greater height. There you go.
Yeah.
Not for the primary structure, but for the ADU.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
It's hard to keep them all consistent, or keep track of them all. I get it.
And I had one question for you, Crystal. In the R&O letter, one of their comments was that the historic photo, or I guess it wasn't actually a historic photo, it was taken in 1976, but in that photo you could see a transom window above the front door, and they had recommended that that be recreated in this application. So do you have any comments on that? Was that something staff had discussed at all?
So we just felt, since this house has already been so much altered, they're already proposing changes that'll put it back more how it is. And because they're keeping the porch, you probably wouldn't really see that transom window anyway. So we didn't feel it was necessary to also force them to put back a transom window that you're not even really going to see.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for staff? Nope. All right, I see that we've promoted the applicant, and for the record, it's the same applicant as the previous public hearing. So that way, Kong, you don't have to repeat your address again. So now you have up to 10 minutes. The time is yours. Unmute yourself when you're ready.
Okay. I'm going to have Charles, because he's creating all the plans, all the details. He have more knowledge about, he can answer most of the questions regarding the plans. But the only thing I need to add it to it is, to keep it. We have so many. We went to so many options, and trying to keep it, as close to the originals, and try not to do a lot of modify to the structure or to the look of the building. So it just working with architecture, working with crystals, and the neighbors, trying to keep everything as a landmark area. So I think this is the best that we can work with, to keep everything the same as the neighbor, and try not to have it, everything visible from the street, trying to keep it as low as possible. So I think the rest, I'm going to have Charles, if you have any question for him. Charles can answer, a lot of the detail for you. That's all I have.
All right, thanks. Charles, did you have anything you wanted to talk about now, or should we just ask questions? Okay, I'm going to take silence as a signal to move forward. Commissioners, are there any questions for the applicants?
Charles, you were on mute and now you're unmuted. Did you have anything to add?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't have any specific comments to make, so I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Great. All right. Commissioners, any questions for the applicants? I have a couple, so I'll jump in. One question I have for you, Charles, is in the letter we received from the RNO with their comments, they had recommended that the ADU be placed at grade so that it can, lower the overall height a little bit. Was that something you had considered? And is there any reason in particular why that would or would not work? Are you amenable to that?
Well, I've did enough of these and I've went through the SUDP permit process. And one of the more regular comments that we get whenever we do a garage that abuts up to an alley is a floodplain related issue. They basically request that we have the threshold of the garage set a minimum of 8 inches above the center point of the alley elevation. So basically we kind of are looking ahead and anticipating that comment because it's come through, I would say probably on about 8 out of 10 of the projects that I work on. So we're just trying to look ahead and kind of tool our design to anticipate that comment will be applicable to this ADU garage threshold as much as it has been in the past for other projects we've did.
Okay, thank you. And then I just had one other question. In the elevations that we received in the drawings, it looks like the front door is level with the slab of the porch. And in the photos, it looks like there's a step up from the porch slab into the house. And I was just wondering if you're enlarging the existing door opening, or is that just, I'm guessing it's just a drawing error. I was just curious.
Yeah, so basically we're showing a step up into the man door of the garage area from the patio deck. Our goal there is to try to basically pour a patio deck slab between the main structure and the ADU structure, and we know that we have to kind of field verify the elevation dimensions there to really know for sure whether a step is going to be required and how tall it'll need to be.
And I was actually referring to the front door, not the back.
Oh, excuse me.
No problem.
Yeah, these are just field dimensions that we've taken on the elevation of that porch slab that have been confirmed. So we're basically just replicating that elevation on our drawing based on field findings.
Okay, I think the photos just show that the slab of the porch is a step down from the door, so you step up into the door. And I was just wondering if that meant you were, you know, making any alterations to the floor level and making the door, you know, taller, at least from the sill's height.
Not our intention. Our intention is to keep the door opening where it currently is. However, we are proposing going to a 7'6" high door where we currently have a 6'8" door installed. So the bottom threshold of the door in the patio will remain at the same elevation. We would just increase the head height of the door. And that's done primarily just to be able to match up with the requested height of the windows flanking the door on either side, just to basically keep the bottom of the adjoining windows a little higher off the floor. It was getting very close to the interior floor level. So it was all part and parcel of trying to make things, create some continuity with the windows by making the door higher.
Thanks. Any other questions for the applicants?
I have a question, Kelly. This is Brad Charles. I'm looking at sheet A5 and just looking at that elevation that faces back to the house. There's that, I want to make sure I understand this brick as well. So this is a true thin veneer brick. It's like it's applied more like a tile. Is that what you're proposing there?
Yeah, to use simpler terms, we kind of call it a peel and stick style, but yes, it would just be a veneer brick and not a full 4-inch thick traditional brick.
Mm-hmm. And the way this is drawn right now, you're showing it on the sides, kind of returning on both second and first floor, but at the front or the south elevation, you're showing siding on the lower portion?
Yes.
I just wondered if that was okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? All right, if not, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comments. Do we have any public comments for this project?
Keith Breyer has his hand raised. So you can unmute yourself whenever you're ready, Keith.
Hi, Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, Chair of the Curtis Park Design Review Committee. And so, yes, we agree with staff's recommendations. We really do not want that peel and stick brick. It's not something that the commission has ever approved in our district. I don't know if they've done it in others, but it's not an appropriate piece. And given that the primary structure will be clad in hardy board, it's best and it will be visible. It should tie into the primary structure. I do have concerns about how they are attaching the hardy board siding to the primary structure. I think that detail needs to be examined because if it is brick, we do want this to make sure that it lasts and that it is able to have a solid substrate to go into. And so that is one question and concern that we do have. The ADU, all of the issues that the staff has brought up, we are definitely in agreement. I think it is fine at the height that it is. Obviously, if we can get it lower and the city does not require that floodplain issue, we would like to have it lowered that 8 inches. Given the front structure is that low, every little bit would help. So we definitely recommend approval with the conditions that staff has placed. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Any other comments?
Yep, I was just allowing Sue to unmute, and it looks like you've unmuted whenever you're ready, Sue.
Hi, Sue Glassmarker, 1037 29th Street, Denver, Colorado, Curtis Park. So this is a true vernacular house, and we do want to save them. I do think there needs to be some adjustments here. When they're going through all this work, I do think that I looked at that library picture that we sent. I have it on my screen now and it's large and I enlarged it. And I think we should go back to the original facade with the transom. And the windows are not correct on this. They're 3 by 6. That isn't a 3 foot by 6 foot. It isn't, that isn't Curtis Park proportions. Our windows are long and thin. And on the original picture from the library, which is circa 1880 is the date on it, just a circa 1880. So it would have to be 1887 or later. But the transom is there and the windows align, the top of the windows align with the top of the transom. And I think that is a look here that was, this doesn't have much character. So I think that was one thing that should be restored back to it, to the original look. If you do the veneer brick on the ADU, the choice is totally inappropriate, the blend and the colors and the fake distressing and everything else. I do think the shingle choices in back, it's not a big deal, but there's right from the same manufacturer, there's a more suitable shingle style that fit more with the old Curtis Park. It could be half round.
Right. Thanks, Sue. Your 2 minutes are up. All right. Are there any other public comments?
Sorry, no, I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay. Great. Then we will go ahead and move into deliberation. Crystal, I just have a quick question to follow up with Sue's comment. She had mentioned that the photo she was referring to, I think it had a different date than what I see on the photo that was provided in the staff report. Do you know if that's the same photo that they're referring to?
Yeah, so the very last photo in the staff report is the one the RNO provided to me. Keith emailed it to me, but he didn't include a date in their letter though. And from what Sue is saying, the date is 1880.
Gotcha.
But they didn't give me that information when they first sent it. So I didn't know the date.
Okay.
So I think I just put date unknown.
Yeah, okay. I saw the other one that was labeled 1976 and I thought that was what they were referring to. So
yeah,
that answers my question. Okay. Any other questions for staff before we deliberate? Okay. What was everyone's thoughts? And Jen, it looks like, I don't know who's moving the applicants into as up to presenter and back, but it looks like we need to readjust that. I think they're still presenters.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. All right. What was everyone's thoughts?
Kelly, this is Brad. I'll start in. Starting kind of backwards, moving forwards, maybe on the ADU. I think the brick veneer is not an appropriate material, especially the thickness of this material. So it's very thin. Even the way it was framed around the windows wouldn't be, you know, characteristic of a brick building. So I'm in total agreement with staff that it just should be taken off, simplified, and just a lap siding would be a big improvement there. I think the cornice is another area too, especially because there's some height concerns. There's no sense in over complicating that detail. I think it could be a simple cap flashing that works well with the lap siding, and it just kind of helps take away some of the attention to that area. And I think it's more appropriate. So from those, from that standpoint, I was in line with what staff's thinking was.
Great. I would agree with you on the ADU comments. And I don't think I've ever seen an example of a building where there's lap siding below and brick above on a level, it's always reverse if you do find it in a historic context. So that seemed very unusual. And I can't recall in my time on the commission us ever approving thin brick, since we require high quality materials be used.
Right.
So just to chime in on that. Any other thoughts? Are we all in agreement?
You know, so,
go ahead.
One other thing I'd throw out there is the I'm trying to pull it up here, but the front elevation, the proportionality of the windows do feel a little squat, especially when you look at the historic image in my mind. So was something about that was interesting, looking at that image and how simple that original structure was. There's really nice little vernacular building. I think that was the term that Sue used, and it's really, really right. So I wondered what other people thought about that as well.
Yeah, what was everybody's thoughts on that, on the openings in the front facade? Anne, what do you think?
Actually, I just wanted to follow up before we get to the back, since Brad started at the front. One thing is, I want to commend the applicant for trying to put some detail into this very tall building, the ADU. And I think there is something to be said for having some kind of a horizontal line to make it seem not quite so tall. I'm a little bit worried that if the brick is eliminated, and I agree the brick is not the appropriate material, that it's going to look even taller and have fewer features. So I guess I would encourage the applicant to try and keep some kind of horizontal banding. And I don't feel so strongly about the cornice for the same reason, that I think it's trying to give a little bit of a feature to a very, very simple structure. So I personally would be fine. I think the brick is not appropriate, but I would be fine actually leaving the cornice, and maybe it's just a different interpretation of this kind of massing at the back. And now I'll let somebody else speak about the windows in the front.
You just punted that. Well, if we're talking about the back cornice, I mean, now we've heard two different sides to this. So does anyone else want to speak their piece on that? Are you in more agreement with what the staff condition is recommended, or, as Anne mentioned, having some sort of detail to break up the two-story structure?
This is Erin. I would agree with Anne, especially if the whole building is the lap siding. I feel it would look just like a box without a little bit of detailing, horizontal elements on it, that I don't really feel like it would detract or give a false sense of history, but just add a little bit of elegance and detail to that simple building.
Thanks, Erin.
I'll jump into, I think one thing Brad mentioned that struck me, and is a detail we use on historic buildings often, is just a cap flashing. And so you still get opportunity for some color or a change there. And that could even be potentially accentuated with a thicker band, a rim joist or something, to read into the structure and breaking it up. Because I agree also with Anne and Erin, it is nice to separate such a big cube or rectangular mass. But I do see keeping it simple, but still providing for a definition that way without a figured or historic appearing detail.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Julie. I think I agree with Anne and Erin, and I like the idea that it's obviously a new building, but this is kind of a nod to the historic without trying to be fake historic. Obviously the brick is not, the veneer is not appropriate. So I think this is like a really nice compromise to have the cornice. I'm fine with it, frankly.
I think I'm more in agreement with Graham that I have no problem with there being a cornice there, but in the staff report or the staff condition actually says simplify, not remove. So I would be comfortable with that language and just, you know, still having separation, banding, as you mentioned, Anne, I completely agree, to kind of break up those floor plates. But I think simplification could be beneficial for this. Okay, so since I don't see anyone else jumping in to speak, let's move back to the front of the house. So what does everyone think about the proportions of the windows? And currently they're proposed to be a little more 3 by 6, a little more squat than the typical Curtis Park window. And they're not proposing to do a transom, but the head of the doors will align with the head of the new windows. So what did everyone think about that? Jeanette, yeah.
Well, since we do have that historic picture that makes it seem like the window proportions are a little different, I would advocate for trying to match that as closely as possible. And also, of course, having the evidence that in Curtis Park in general, windows tend to be a little, you know, narrower and taller. And then as far as the transom goes, although I think it would be lovely to have that, to me, that seems like, it would seem like requiring them to undertake a restoration sort of a house that's not, I mean, they're doing a lot to the house, but I'm not sure it's within our purview to require them to take an additional step beyond the work that they're doing, as nice as that would be.
Thanks.
I agree with Jeanette. I think the fact that we have a historic photo, which is something you don't even have of some high style, you know, properties we look at. And so, you know, the comment about the vernacular architecture is certainly accurate, but I think when you have a historic photo, it's definitely a different factor that we don't see often, but makes it difficult to move away from that, in spite of the guidelines, as Jeanette said, also not requiring restoration. So I think that's a fair comment. But the guidelines do talk about, you know, sensitivity to the existing patterns in the historic district. And that's where I think matching that original window proportion is a fair ask, in my opinion.
Thanks, Graham. I see a lot of nodding heads. So it sounds like we're all in agreement on that. I would agree with what you both said. I don't think this is a true restoration. So I don't think, I agree, Jeanette, that it doesn't seem necessary to require them to add a transom or anything like that. But the window proportions, that is something that's in our guidelines, and they're already changing the opening size already. So it doesn't seem like it would be too difficult to change those proportions. Great. Now, the only other thing I heard that maybe it warrants a quick conversation is, you know, Keith had mentioned that, okay, you know, how is this hardy siding being attached if there's this layer of one white brick veneer? And I don't see in their application any details for installing the siding. I don't know if I missed it, please speak out, but is that something we want to add a condition so that staff can review? I'd be comfortable with staff reviewing it just to make sure that there isn't any damage to the structure or any risk of water, you know, getting caught back there. Do you all agree?
I think from a constructability perspective, just how unforgiving hardy board siding is, that you would definitely have to provide some kind of backing there. But then how that gets installed and whether that changes a window depth or, you know, any sort of reveal that we, again, typically require for replacement windows and that kind of thing, I think is a good condition and definitely one staff can take a look at.
Great.
I wouldn't want to be the one to install hardy over brick. Sounds challenging.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no further discussion, would someone like to try a motion? And remember, it sounds like we're making a couple changes that it seemed we had consensus on. being the proportions at the front facade of those windows and the details for installation of the lap siding.
Kelly, one of the other questions I had was on staff recommended number 3. I don't know if we really talked about that one, either change the windows on the second floor to be 1 over double hung windows to match the district proportions. I guess we didn't really look at that side.
We didn't talk about it.
Have that.
Did anybody take issue with that? With the condition? Yeah, I tend to
Okay.
agree with staff. I see a thumbs up from Julie. Were you concerned about that, Brad?
No, I just wanted to make sure we close the loop on there if we're going to make some recommendations here, just to see. I can go and take a stab at recommendations here.
All right.
Give me 1 second. All right, I move to conditionally approve application number 2021-COA-064 for the alterations at 2847 Stout Street as per design guidelines 2.5, 2.14, 2.20, 2.25, 2.27, 3.6, 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, 4.8, 4.18, 4.19, 5.9, character defining features for the Curtis Park Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. Number 1, on the ADU, eliminate the brick veneer and clad in smooth lap siding to match the rest of the structure and primary structure. On the ADU, simplify the metal cornice at the roof line. Number 3, on the ADU, change the windows at the second floor to be 1 over 1 double hung windows to match district proportions. Number 4, on the ADU, casement windows are required to be simulated divided lights with spacer bars or double hung casements. Number 5, study narrower and taller window proportions on the front facade of the house to closer match district proportions. And number 6, provide staff with details of the siding connection to the brick.
Thank you, Brad. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, this is Julie. I'll second it.
Thank you, Julie. All right, I'll call for the vote. Jeanette.
I have a brief question.
Okay.
I believe I heard Brad say, so on the 4th condition to say on the ADU, what I heard him say was on the ADU casement windows are required to be simulated divided light with spacer bar or double hung casements, which is a little different from what the motion says, which is just double hung windows, which I'm thinking that was a mistake, but in how he said it, but I could be wrong, to allow for actually something that's actually not casement.
Yeah, I think you're right. I should have said double hung windows. I didn't mean to say casement on the second window description, so.
Okay, then I'll
Thanks.
just, I'll make a friendly amendment to change the language to double hung windows instead of double hung casement.
Okay,
Thanks,
I
Jeanette.
accept that friendly amendment.
Great. And Julie, do you accept this?
I accept that friendly amendment.
All right. Thanks. Good catch.
And then I got another, I thought that I was hearing the consensus being that the metal cornice didn't have to be simplified, but did I get that wrong?
I think we were split on it.
We're split. Okay. And so Brad just, okay, that's fine then. That's fine. Okay. I will go ahead and vote aye on the motion.
Okay. Thank you, Jeanette. Brad?
Aye.
Aaron? Graham?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
And Kelly? Aye. All right, so the motion passes unanimously. And the project is conditionally approved. So you can continue to work with Crystal on that. And we'll go ahead and move forward to the next design review project, which is 2021-COA-063 at 3045 Stout Street. And
Sorry, Crystal, I was about to give that to someone else, but it's your project, sorry.
No worries. Okay. Yeah, so we have 3045 Stout Street. This is a proposal for a new infill single-family residence with detached garage on an existing vacant lot in the Curtis Park G Historic District. This lot is part of the Denver Housing Authority's redevelopment of the Platte Valley homes, which you're all probably pretty familiar with by now. Landmark staff feel that development along this block of Stout should have a consistent setback. So we are supportive of that 18-foot setback that's shown to match an already approved application at 3053 Stout Street. So on the left here, you can see the siding of the new house. And on the right side is the site plan showing that proposed 18-foot setback. So here are the proposed floor plans for the new home, showing the basement level all the way through to the roof plan. And here on the left is the proposed ground plan for the new structure, and on the right, the streetscape comparison for the new structure. The building form and massing is characteristic of the district. And the new overall height for the proposed structure has been brought down from 31 feet to 29 feet 6-inch maximum, matching other structures on the block and across the street, which they were also asked to look at. So on this slide, you can see that streetscape comparison for the houses along the opposite side of the block. The height of the hipped roof has been adjusted from the previous submittal that you saw and is now at 29 feet, 5 or 6 inches, better matching historic proportions and heights found directly across the street and on this street. So they basically met our previous requirement. Here's the compatibility demonstration showing how this Queen Anne design follows typical designs found within the district, such as having the main windows on the projecting gable and having that main entry door on the building inset. And then here's the rest of that compatibility demonstration showing other kind of Queen Anne's in this area and across the street. So here on the left is the front facade elevation. In the inset, I've put the previous submittal that you saw on January 19th. That was at 31 feet tall. So here you can see the elevation with the paired windows on the first and second floor with a 1-story porch and a full light door at the inset. And you can see how the previous height has just been shortened somewhat for this kind of hip roof Queen Anne. To the right, you can see the northeast facade showing how the brick will wrap the sides of the structure by approximately 11 feet. And then the siding material changed to a lap siding. And the windows will become a more modern square shape where they'll be less visible once the other structures are built on these lots. And then here's to the left is the rear elevation of the home. It'll be clad in lap siding. They have sliding doors proposed at the rear first floor. And then that projecting gable kind of for the rear upper portion. And then here you can also see the wrap of the brick that goes a little bit further back to like cover a chimney at that front right portion, and then changes to lap siding with more atypical window proportions at the rear. And then here you can see the proposed 1-story detached garage. They'll also be clad in that lap siding and will match the primary structure. And then here's the isometric that was provided. At the inset picture, you can see kind of the taller one that was proposed previously and how they've just brought the height down to match the historic character of the area. So The proposed structure meets our overall mass and proportions and styles for the district. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of this phase 1.
Thanks, Crystal. Are there any questions for staff? Nope. All right. Can we promote the applicant to be a presenter? And when you're ready, go ahead and unmute yourself. Please start with your name and address for the record, and you have up to 10 minutes.
Hi, this is Andre Kuvian, address 2899 North Spear Boulevard, Denver, Colorado, 80211. Thanks to the commission and to staff for all your work on this. Also wanted to just call out Lindsay and Christian Skipper, who should also be in attendance, I would think. They are the owners here and we are designing for them. We presented on January 19th and, after full discussions with Landmark staff and with Curtis Park Neighbors Association. It seemed like in January, the project was pretty well received, other than the fact that we were breaking the max height of zoning. That request was actually sort of just based on our conversations with Curtis Park. So we were happy to make some adjustments based on that. The only change to what you guys saw in January is that we took the roof from a 10-12 pitch down to an 8-12 pitch. And as you can see from some of the examples in our packet, we feel like the 8-12 pitch is pretty representative of the contributing structures in the neighborhood, especially the Queen Anne's. And yeah, I think that's about it. I'm happy to answer any questions or address any concerns that the commission has. Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any questions for the applicant? No. All right. Doesn't look like it. Thank you for your time.
We did also promote the skippers, and there was one gentleman, Jordan Fisher, who was also part of the applicant team. So if any of them would like to speak, there was still a little time. Didn't want to cut them off entirely. And if you wanted to speak, you can unmute yourself. Otherwise, we're good.
I'll just give you a second in case anybody wanted to speak there.
This is Lindsay Skipper. We're here. We appreciate everybody's time. We don't have anything else additional to add.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. All right, well, if there aren't any questions, I think it was a thorough application. So we'll just go ahead and move forward into the public comment period. Is there anyone present who would like to provide a comment?
Yep, Keith is here. Let me recalibrate my time. Let's see. You can unmute whenever you're ready.
It went away. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, Curtis Park Design Review Committee Chair. Obviously, the applicant has made the requirement that Landmark Commission has addressed on that issue. We still are very steadfast that we feel that the original design and the verticality and having it only be 2 feet taller than what the zoning district requirement, we felt that the original design fits better with the district because we are a very vertical district. This new proposed design meets the commission's request, but it is squat. And the roofs, yes, are found in the district, but they're on different lots. They're on wider lots. This is a very narrow lot. And as a result, that's why we have are higher pitched, and that's why we've had previous approvals for administrative adjustments for heights. And so if you compare the two, you will see a difference where one looks squat and one looks appropriate, and it's more vertical in its orientation. And that is Curtis Park. And that is why we still would request that the original design be approved, because the current one is too squat and is a mini-me, which we have others that have happened in the district and just do not fit with the character of the neighborhood. So that is all. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Are there any other comments?
Yep. Let's see, Sue, you can unmute whenever you're ready.
Sue Glassmacher, 1037 29th Street, Denver, Colorado, Curtis Park. I have two, well, I do think it looks squat, and I think you're making a mistake requesting that. And it will look like a very fake look to it. It will look like somebody that doesn't know what a Victorian looks like built this. I do think it should be higher. However, there are two other things. Did they request administrative adjustments? Do they need them for bulk plane or anything like that? And the other one is, this is a request to the applicants. And most of my comments when I saw this design referred to part 2. So I would like to request a meeting with the applicants, with Keith and I, so that we could go over some of the details and what's more appropriate and such like that. That's all for me.
All right, thank you, Sue. And to answer your question, there is an administrative adjustment that's as proposed as part of the motion. So yes, that is something that we're looking at because it does pierce the bulk plane. All right, are there any other comments?
No, no other hands raised.
Great. Then let's move into deliberation. What did everyone think? And feel free to fill me in since I apparently missed the first viewing of this one. Yeah, Anne.
Hi, so this is Anne. I'll jump in. Well, I just think this is a terrific project. And I think the whole block is, we've seen just really great examples of infill housing on this block, and each one is different, but they all seem to be, to me, very cohesive. And I think this is another version of a really cohesive, really nicely done project. And I am happy to see that the roof has been lowered, because I think this block will be unique and it will fit in actually with its neighbors on either side. Because I think we looked at the height of this project relative to the height of the other projects that have been proposed for proposed on this block, and this will be actually right in line with them. But I think it's just a really nicely done project, and I commend the applicant.
Great. I saw some nodding heads while you were talking. Did Anne speak for everybody?
Yeah, I think Kelly, just like you say, to fill you in, and welcome back officially, right? There were a lot of different administrative modifications and kind of unique features here with so many open lots. And I think as a commission, we talked about within a historic context where it's appropriate or not appropriate to forward those or to approve those. And that was a big part of our roof height discussion here. It was a zoning code question. It was, things that dabble in and out of our purview, but didn't feel like something we could address head on. And so because of the number of properties here and similar conditions, I think this one specifically fell into a category of consistency with the others, like Anne said. So, and other commissioners, please feel free to jump in and add to that. But I think in general, that was kind of what drove us to meeting the height limitation while still feeling comfortable with the slight width and the bulk plane being a component of this one. So.
Thanks. That's what I was curious about, since both Keith and Sue had comments about the height and it feeling squat. And I think I must have missed that conversation last time. So thank you for.
We didn't want to overstep our zoning purview, so.
Makes sense.
Kelly, this is Brad. The only thing I would add is I agree with what Ann and Graham said. And I think if you go back to the RNO letter, there's some good information in there about studying the fascia and kind of those roof details, because I think that'll help with the perception that the building is squat. I think right now there's a heaviness, and a little bit of that is maybe driven by some of those details. So I think it's a very successful project, and I think it'll be really fun to see it go to the next phase where they start to work those details and make it special.
Great. Thanks, Brad. Well, it sounds like everyone's in agreement. Would someone like to make a motion?
I can make the motion.
Thanks, Anne.
Madam Chair, I move for approval and administrative, I move to approve application number 2021-COA-063 for the mass form and context of the proposed infill structure at 3045 Stout Street as per presented testimony, submitted documentation, guidelines 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.7, 4.8, 4.18, 4.19, the Curtis Park character defining features, and recommend to the zoning administrator approval of an administrative adjustment for the bulk plane violations on the zone lot per section 12.4.5.3 of the Denver zoning code. Presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Anne. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Graham. All right. If there's no further discussion, then I will call for the vote. Jeanette.
Aye.
Brad.
Aye.
Aaron.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Kelly. Aye. All right. Unanimous approval. Congratulations, and we will see you back for the design detail submission. All right, the next project up for review is 2021-COA-058 at 3051 Stout Street, just neighboring this one. So I think we have Jesse for this one.
Jesse, if you're talking, you're muted.
She's saying it won't let me. I can read her lips.
Oh, I can do that. Hold on. I can unmute you. Oh, I can't unmute you. I can ask you to unmute.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to unmute right when you gave me control of the screen and then it disappeared and I couldn't unmute. All right, so this is 3051 Stout Street. We're reviewing today for phase 1 mass form and context. This is right next door to the one that you just reviewed. The applicant is proposing to construct a single family residence along the Stout Street side of the street of the DHA site. And they will be using the Victorian or Queen Anne style common to Curtis Park. Okay, so the site is currently a vacant lot, as I said before. It's located in the Curtis Park G Historic District, and it will be one of many that you will review on this side of the street for this DHA site. Okay, so the proposed infill will be set back 18 feet 1 inches. The DHA retains buildings on the north, south, and east sides of the block. On December 1st, 2020, the commission reviewed the first single family home redevelopment on the DHA site at 3053 Stout Street with a proposed setback of 18 feet. At the time of the December meeting, the landmark staff were working with zoning administration to determine if these projects would qualify for an administrative adjustment. On December 3rd, zoning administration confirmed that the 18-foot setback would qualify for an unusual circumstance per section 12.4.7.5.B.1.A of the code, based on the fact that the zone lots are technically shorter than the standard zone lots due to the imposition of an easement. Landmark staff feel that all development along this block of Stout Street should have a consistent setback and are supportive of the 18-foot setback to match the approved siding of 3053 Stout Street on this side of the block. A recommendation from the LPC on unusual circumstances is not required. And the applicant has been advised on how to begin the application process for setback adjustment with zoning. So this is the proposed building design or site plan, and it's designed, as I said, in the Queen Anne form. The footprint measures 18 feet 8 inches wide by 60 feet 4 inches in length. And here you can see the basement level and first floor level of the proposed structure. And here you can see the second floor level and the roof plan for the proposed structure. So the building will be 29 feet 4 inches in height with a raised foundation fitting into typical building heights across the street. The proportions were also pulled from other Queen Anne style buildings across the street and within the adjacent context. So they are pulling from overall building proportions found in the district to come up with the overall design of the structure. The proposed roof form is a gable on hip with broken eave returns, typical of the Queen Anne roof form in this district. The infill will have tall, narrow windows and door proportions with rhythms typical of the Queen Anne style. The proposed entrance will be recessed under the porch and will be located on the facade inset, which is typical to Curtis Park. The proposed full width porch will feature a hip roof with turned wood columns and decorative woodwork in the eaves and simple square railing and balustrade. Staff do have concerns about the replicativeness of the proposed porch details. However, these items can be addressed during phase 2 design details. The proposed windows, doors, and porch fit within the surrounding historic context as outlined by the applicant in their application. So here are the side elevations for your review. As you can see here, they are wrapping that brick material 15 feet back, or excuse me, I think 13 feet back, which is typical for new infill for this district. They will provide more details on that in their phase 2 submittal. So here is their streetscape comparison. This is showing how it will fit into the context across the street. And as you can see, the proportions do fit quite nicely with the buildings on the other side of the street. And then pictured here is page 2 of their streetscape comparison. The proposed building height, mass, and form fits within the range of heights and is compatible with the massing and form of the buildings across the street. The applicant is also proposing a mass and form commonly found in the district, especially for Queen Anne style dwellings. The applicant included a raised foundation and shifts and wall pane common to Queen Anne buildings in the district. The facade features typical vertical windows and door proportions with horizontal banding and belt course details typical of this style building. So the applicant has also included a streetscape comparison for the Stout Street side of the block of the DHA site. The site currently only has 4 buildings at its corners. These buildings are non-contributing. And as you just saw, you reviewed phase 1 for the house next door, and the building to the left of this proposed building has already been approved for mass form and context and design details for you all. So pictured here is page 1 of the compatibility demonstration. On this page, the applicant shows the context and that they drew from for their design, including tall, narrow windows and door proportions, decorative belt courses, porch layouts and roof forms, and massing and proportions. Okay. So in addition to the primary structure, the applicant is proposing a single-story detached garage at the back of the lot. The proposed garage will measure 23 feet, 2.5 inches in length by 20 feet wide by 13 feet, 11 and 5/8 inches in height. The garage will feature a gable roof and doors and windows with similar proportions to those on the house. The garage will have access off the alley and fits within typical garage forms and orientations found elsewhere in the district. So pictured here are the proposed isometrics showing the primary structure and garage, just to give you a better idea of what the structure will look like. The proposed infill project fits within the surrounding setbacks, building heights, building scales, building forms and proportions, meeting guidelines 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.9, and 4.11. The proposed gable on hip roof form is indicative of the Queen Anne style in Curtis Park, guideline 4.7. Proposed window and door proportions, appearances, rhythms, and locations fit within the historic context of the district, guideline 4.8. The proposed porch fits the scale of the building and is proportional to other porches found in the district, guideline 4.15, 4.16, and 4.17. For these reasons, staff is recommending approval of the application. Staff would also like to add a second motion in here. I failed to do so for the bulk plane issue. So we would recommend an administrative adjustment for violation of the bulk plane. And that motion would be, I move to recommend a bulk plane administrative adjustment for the infill per section 12.4.5.3 of the Denver zoning code to the zoning administrator. I would also like to say that Curtis Park neighbors did review this application on December 22nd, 2021. The RNO was supportive of the design with only a few comments. A copy of the RNO comments have been included in the application packet for the commission's review.
Thanks, Jesse. Are there any questions for staff? No? I just have one question for you, Jesse. So it looked like there was an egress window well at the front of the house that's kind of in the porch, like I'm guessing set in the porch, like there's a grill over it or something. Maybe they'll have a detail of that in the next submittal, but typically we don't approve egress window wells on the front. It doesn't appear like it will be visible from the public right of way. Was that something that you discussed with staff? Did you have any opinions on that?
So actually, a good catch. I didn't notice that. That may be an error that you want to ask the applicant about.
Okay.
It's not typical to have an egress window on the porch or in the porch floor. And I don't know if that would meet all the requirements per zoning. So that's definitely a question that you should ask the applicant. And as far as visibility goes, if it meets zoning requirements, I don't think that staff would necessarily have a problem with it as it's not visible. But again, I would defer to whatever zoning would say as to whether or not that is an appropriate location for an egress window.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for staff? No? All right.
I'm going to pull up the applicant's presentation real fast. So there is going to be a screen change. Hold on.
Okay. And while that's happening, I assume that the applicant is being promoted to presenter. You'll just need to unmute yourself when you're ready, when the presentation's up, and you'll have up to 10 minutes. Please start with your name and address for the record.
Okay, hi everyone. This is Joshua Cedar. My address is 4985 Meade Street, Denver, Colorado, 80221. So I am the owner, along with my partner, Julia Cedar, at the empty pile of dirt at 3051 Stout Street. I just want to start off by saying thank you to both the LPC as well as the RNO for their very thoughtful and constructive feedback. We have definitely appreciated the kind of collaborative spirit throughout this part one process. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I really just want to focus on today about how our design evolved from, I want to say, the November timeframe to today. I think with all the changes and feedback that we've incorporated, we've definitely landed on a much more, excuse me, cohesive and stronger design in the end that kind of respects the historical context of other Queen Anne's in the neighborhood. So I just wanted to really talk through the major changes that you can see between the image on the left and the image on the right. So as Jesse mentioned, we first started with 2 gables, which we then replaced with a gable on hip, which is more traditional with other buildings in the neighborhood. We also added a raised foundation. We modified the proportions of the windows to be more tall and wide to be to align with other buildings in the district. We also restudied the porch form, and some of the more apparent changes that you can see is we added the 3rd post there to frame the front door. We added the spandrel trim detail, and we also replaced the more square shaped posts with a simple turn version. We also added arch lintels to the upper level windows, as you can see. And then we also added decorative belt course detail to both the 1st floor and 2nd floor as well. The last thing that I want to call it here, we did add a decorative transom window above the front door, which we intend to frame with an stained glass address plaque. So if you go to the next slide, this really just summarizes what I just went through, and that's all I wanted to cover today. So I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? I'll just ask the one question that I had brought up to staff, which is, so is the intent to have a window well off of the front facade that then comes up to the front porch, or was I misunderstanding the drawings?
No, that is the intent. So it would be covered with a grill.
Okay, and I guess I have 2 follow-up questions to that. Maybe 3, but they're quick. One is, I assume that's because there's not enough room with the side setbacks for it to be located on the side. Okay. The second question I have is, and I apologize, I don't work on residential buildings, so I'm not positive about this. I know that they're required for bedrooms. Is it required in a family room?
I believe it is. So we do have a family room and a bedroom on the basement level.
Sure. I saw that it was for the family room specifically, and the bedroom is off the back, the window well for that. So I just wasn't sure about that. And then I guess the last question I have on this subject is what Jessie had mentioned, which is, you know, she wasn't sure whether zoning would approve that going to the porch like that. I don't know if you've had any discussions with zoning yet.
I haven't had any discussions with zoning at this time, but our builder has mentioned that every house that he has done this on, it has been approved by zoning.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicants? No? All right. Thanks for your presentation.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, and I assume we have some public comments on this one?
Yep, Keith is here.
Great.
All right, you're ready whenever you are, Keith.
Great. Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, Denver, Colorado, 80205, Curtis Park Design Review Chair. We definitely appreciate working with staff and with the owners on this. It definitely made for a really nice collaboration from where, as you saw, they started and to where we have today. It is a great house. It definitely hits the points. It does keep its verticality more so, and it doesn't look as squat as the previous application. And that's just the way that the treatment has been made with the bay and a few other details that give it a little bit more verticality and prevents it from looking squat. We like how it has the 3 windows on the ground and then the 2 windows above. It's very traditional patterning in the district. And we definitely do appreciate the spandrels. You know, they can't replicate things. And so we feel like this porch definitely gives a nod, but you could clearly see, given the material that it will be built from, that it is of today's design and today's materials. And so it's not necessarily going to be a false sense of history, but yet really fit in well with the district. So we definitely feel this meets the mass scale and form. The windows hit the right proportions, and we definitely recommend approval per staff's request. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
Sue is next. Sue, whenever you're ready. Did I hit the right button? Try that again.
I'm ready. I agree with what Keith said. This is a nice design, and it has, you can tell on this one, the roof doesn't look squat as the previous one did. This is just this simple change. It's a 12.9 versus a 12.8 pitch, but that extra difference, that little difference makes it different, looks different. So I appreciate that they have a good pitch on the roof. And the only thing I'm concerned about was, Jesse, when you said that about the replicative nature of the porch, I don't think it's replicative at all. Well, as I understand it, I didn't think simplified meant no design, no decor to be added to it. I know this is a part 2 discussion, but it was really looking very plain, and this house really needed some encouragement. And just a couple little touches like that really made a big difference. And I think they've done a wonderful job on it. And certainly they fit mass and scale. So thank you. That's all. I really enjoy this building.
Thanks, Sue. Any other comments?
I don't see any other hands raised.
All right. Then before we move into deliberation, Jesse, do you want to mention anything about the replicative nature and whether that was directed about the porch? I know it's going to be a design details issue, but I think it helped the applicant.
Yeah, certainly. So I worked closely with the applicant, and the RNO did as well, to bring the proportions, as you can see, more in line with other buildings in the historic district. So you have that horizontal banding that's typical. You have the roof eaves, the broken roof eave that's typical. There are a lot of details on this house already that are very replicative of existing historic houses, including the turnwood columns on the porch and kind of that decorative banding across the top of the porch, or the railing across the top of the porch. Staff just felt that, you know, during the design details phase, because this is such a traditional form, anything that they could do to kind of simplify the porch form, or simplify or modernize the details to help it really stand out as a new infill structure would be really key. It's not to say that there can't be any detail on the porch at all. We just want those details to be more simplified so that it is more recognizable from as a new construction, and can be differentiated from the historic house or historic buildings in the district.
Great, thanks, Jesse. All right, let's move into deliberation. What did everyone think about this?
And just a heads up, I'm going to be shifting the slides again.
Okay.
Kelly, this is Brad. I'll start.
Thank you.
I thought it was, I think it's a very nice project. I think the scale and math feel very appropriate. I think they've done a good job with the height to width proportions, and I'm supportive of staff's guidelines here.
Great, thanks, Brad.
Madam Chair, this is Julie. I agree with Brad. I really like the look of the last version of this, and I would support staff's recommendation.
Thanks, Julie. And do I see some nodding heads? Cool. Great. Figured we would all be on the same page after the last application we reviewed. Yeah, this seems like another great infill project. So, and I would agree with Jesse's comments about just so the applicant knows for the design details round that I would agree there could be some simplification made to really make this stand out as new modern construction. And I know I asked all those questions about the window well. I don't have many concerns about it since it's not visible from the public right away. I just thought it was a very unusual circumstance, and oftentimes we don't approve them on the front of homes, but this is also infill and not a historic home. So I think that's another differentiating factor there.
And Kelly, just go ahead, Ann.
Brad's going to say the same thing I did. We had exactly this condition. Isn't that correct? Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. We had the same condition on another house. I think it was actually on this this same block, and similar situation where you weren't able to actually see it from the street because it's in the porch. Our understanding was it was going to be flush with the porch and there'd be a grate over it. And the other piece of information we got from that, if I'm remembering correctly, is that's not technically an egress window. The egress, Brittany has her hand up, so maybe she has better information, but we've had these same discussions on another project while you were out.
Okay, thank you. Gosh, I'm just so out of it now. I missed all the good talk. So Brittany, what did you have to add on that?
So that project is in the L&M Ghost Historic District. It's a light well. Light wells cannot encroach into the side yard setback. Egresses can, but light wells cannot per zoning. So if this is a light well, it may not be able to be placed in the side yard setback, but if it's an egress, which egress are not required for family rooms, it would, it could encroach, but I mean, egress is not required for a family room. So, and as Brad said, we did approve it on that project proposal. It has a solid porch wall there. And we required the egress window well material to be similar to the porch foundation and the overall structure of the house.
Gotcha. Thank you for filling me in. You know, you have a baby and then like all this stuff just happens while you're out. Okay, sounds good. Well, getting back to the task at hand, looks like a great project and it sounds like we're all in agreement. So who's going to make the motion?
I can do it. So, Madam Chair, I move to recommend approval of application number 2021 COA-058 for the new infill building at 3051 Stout Street. As per design guidelines 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.7, 4.8, 4.9, 4.11, 4.15, 4.16, 4.17, character defining features for the Curtis Park Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Jeanette. Do we have a second?
I think you need to add the bulk plane administrative adjustment.
I was going to make a friendly amendment. Don't we have to have a second before?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second the original motion.
Okay. Thanks, Graham. Do you want to make the amendment, Aaron? Or
I can. I didn't write down the.
I've got it, so I can read it.
You can make
and
it.
Also, just one quick thing. Jeanette's motion was for a recommendation of approval. So, which is written in the staff report. It just needs to be a approval and then recommendation for an administrative adjustment.
Okay. So I will make a friendly amendment that the motion be, I move to approve, not I recommend approval. And that the following be added to the motion. That we recommend to the zoning administrator approval of an administrative adjustment for bulk plane violations on the zone lot per section 12.4.5.3 of the Denver zoning code. Presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Accept.
Thanks, Jeanette. And Graham, do you accept?
Do.
Okay. So is there any further discussion on the motion? Did we get it all?
Yep.
All right, then I will ask for the vote. Jeanette.
Aye.
Brad.
Aye.
Aaron.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Kelly. Aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the project is approved, and we will see you back for design details. All right, next up we have project 2021-COA-060 at 2810 Welton Street. And
So this project is in the 5 Points Historic Cultural District. It will entail demolition of 2 existing structures, a zone lot amendment, and a new infill proposal. The commission actually approved the demolition of the existing structures in 2015, the zone lot amendment in 2015, and also the infill proposal in 2015. At that time, the commission approved it with the condition of approval of final construction documents. So this project never had a COA formally issued, as the applicant was working through some zoning issues related to the parking, and final construction documents were never issued, and therefore a COA was never issued. This is not a condition that we would use today for approval of a infill project or any project within the landmark historic districts. We are involved in the review of all final construction documents against our certificate of appropriatenesses. However, this project has remained open since 2015 as it was approved under that final construction document condition. So since that time, the applicant has been working through the site development plan process, and some principal design changes have resulted as this through the site development plan process. So originally this building didn't have sufficient parking. So to accommodate the parking, the applicant has shortened the building from the approved 98 feet to 88 feet, which you can see here in the plan proposal, and added a parking carousel structure on the back of the property, which you can see here in this proposal. So one of the major changes to the massing is a reduction in the building footprint and depth from 98 feet to 88 feet with a parking carousel structure. The use of the building has also changed since 2015, as that is typical. We don't usually look at use, we just look at how that use impacts the exterior. But these adjustments were also made due to parking rules and regulations. So I did want to note that there have been some adjustments to the use, but that is not something that we have purview over. In addition to the 2015 review, at that time, we weren't requesting a high level of detail on mechanical items, venting items, things like that. So the applicant has also included their mechanical lighting plans on this updated submittal. And the applicant will actually be installing rooftop mechanical at the rear of the building, as you can see in this plan here. So there will be rooftop mechanical at the rear of the building. This is just the upper story plans. The upper floors are set back 15 feet from the ground floors, which is recommended by the 5 Points design standards and guidelines. This project was actually approved prior to the adoption of those guidelines, but it does meet the overall massing requirements in the 5-point guidelines, in which states that buildings must have a 3-story base, and then the any floor above the 3-story base must be set back from the Welton Street facade. So here is a section through the building showing that parking carousel structure. It will be enclosed, so it will be screened from the public view, which is required by the 5 points design standards and guidelines. And I do have some views to show you that. So no changes have been made to the Welton Street facade. This is the exact same configuration that was proposed and approved by the commission in 2015. The only difference here is the applicant has included some gooseneck lights at the ground floor that weren't in the previous approval by the commission, but no other changes. The building will have a 3-story building base, as I indicated. The ground floor will be commercial with mixed use above. It will have a central entrance with a recessed storefront entrance, which is typical of the 5 Points Historic District. The building base will be clad in brick, which is recommended by the 5 Points guidelines, and the upper floors will be clad in stucco. So the principal changes occur on the secondary elevations. So here you have the 2015 approved west elevation, and here we have the proposed 2021 proposed west elevation. So you can see that there are very minor changes. They principally include that parking carousel structure and mechanical room that will be clad in stucco, but this is located at the rear of the building and is not highly visible from the public right of way. And it will be a genuine 3-coat stucco. The mechanical room will have a cantilever that allows for parking on the ground floor, and then a decorative cornice to match the building facade, and some rooftop mechanical that will allow it to be screened more so from the public right of way. And then the carousel room will be a 3-story structure. There have been some minor adjustments to the window proportions on the west elevation due to shortening of the building in depth. So you can see in the 2015 approval on the 5th floor that the building had a ribbon window towards the rear of the building. That has been eliminated, and then a pair of grouped windows have been proposed for the 5th floor in the kind of middle of the facade. This is not highly visible from the public right of way due to the setback of that upper floors, and the window proportions are similar to the window proportions that were previously approved for this section of the building. So staff feel that it does meet the design guidelines for the 5 Points Historic District, which this project proposal is being evaluated under with the modifications. Here is the east elevation. There are no changes proposed for the east elevation, with the exception that the applicant has included the venting and mechanical elements that will be necessary to make this building an operable building. And then you can see the 3-story parking carousel structure at the rear that will be clad in stucco. The 2015 plan approved elevation for your reference. And then here is the rear elevation. So again, the principal change here is the inclusion of that parking carousel enclosed structure, and then that mechanical room that is cantilevered and 2 stories in height to provide mechanical to make this an operable building. So the design guidelines for the 5 Points Historic District talk about how parking, structured parking must be enclosed and screened from the public vantage points. So staff do feel that the parking carousel structure is meeting the 5 Points design standards and guidelines. Additionally, we think it's a smart use to do the mechanical at the rear of the building, which is recommended by our design guidelines. It will be screened within that mechanical room and then on the rooftop of that 2nd floor. So very minimally visible from the public right of way. The 5 Points guidelines do say not to use stucco on the ground floor. However, we don't feel that this is violating the 5 points guidelines because the building is principally clad in brick, and this is just at the rear of the building. And the applicant needed to enclose the parking carousel in some manner, and we feel that it is very minimal use of stucco at the ground floor level, so we're not concerned about that application. Additionally, the stucco here at the ground floor level will be painted to blend in with the brick, so it will be very unnoticeable. So here are the proposed renderings of the buildings. Staff are recommending approval as this project has previously been approved by the Landmark Preservation Commission, and there are very minimal adjustments to the overall mass, form, and context and design details of the proposed project.
Thanks, Brittany. Are there any questions for staff?
I have a question. Brittany, what guidance could you give us about whether it would be appropriate or within our purview re-examine any aspects of the building that have not meaningfully changed since the approval, such as the design of the 4th and 5th floors?
Yeah, so again, this is an open project. It essentially has an approval on it. It's just that it's been an open project because of the parking issues that this building has, and the changes that they have made are to principally address those issues. So little to no purview there.
That's a question I had. I'm just going to elaborate on it slightly because we did receive written comments from Keith Pryor, and I'm sure he'll go ahead and comment here too. And he had made some comments about the 4th and 5th stories and the windows and the balcony. I'm assuming we don't have any purview over that since most of that hasn't changed beyond a couple window openings on one facade, right?
Yeah, so there's no changes to the front facade. The only change that you would have purview over would be, I don't know if I can annotate this. Let me see. Does not look like it. But on this west elevation on the 5th floor, there are 2 new windows that are grouped together. So if the commission doesn't feel those are appropriate, you'd have purview over that. You have purview over the parking structure, but that's, and the lighting, but that's about it.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for staff? Yeah, Anne.
Hi, this is Ann, and maybe I'm asking the same question for the 3rd time, but if this project were presented now for the first time in mass, form, and context, would it meet the current zoning and 5 points criteria?
So generally speaking, it does meet the 5 points criteria. So the 5 points design guidelines discuss that this is in the CMX5 zone district, so they are allowed to have 5 stories in height, and 5 points is one of the few districts that you can build taller than the surrounding historic context. However, anytime that you are building more than 3 stories within the 5 points historic districts, those upper stories have to be set back from the Welton Street facade, which this building does. So even though it was reviewed prior to those adoption of those design guidelines, it's still meeting that requirement. The 5 points design guidelines also discuss that buildings should have articulation on all elevations. This building is articulated on all elevations. It has windows, it has some decorative brick banding, some stucco banding on the upper floors. The only really exception to it not really meeting the design guidelines is that the guidelines now currently call for more coordination between the ground floor and the upper floor. However, again, there are very minimal changes to the upper floor and where those windows are placed. And that's particularly for the Welton Street facade. And there are no changes proposed to the Welton Street facade. So that is one thing that doesn't quite meet the design guidelines, but again, there are very few changes to that. design.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. I want to make one quick comment before we turn it over to the applicant. I actually, normally I would, if we were meeting in person, I would recuse myself and leave the room. I have no conflict with this project, but I have to feed my child. And so since we're virtual, I am just going to hide my video. So I'm going to go away from video, but I'm here. I have audio. And right now I'll just turn it over to the applicant. So you'll have up to 10 minutes. Please start with your name and address for the record.
And you'll need to unmute yourselves.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Okay, my name is Rudolph Brown. I'm the architect of record for the project. My address is 9920 East Ohio Avenue, Denver, Colorado, 80247. Basically, I have practiced historical architecture with the National Park Service, and I have done 2 or 3 projects in the 5 Points area during the historical time. And 2 of those projects was 2831 and 2835 Welton Street. Since then, those projects have been demoed or moved. And looking at this project, we actually designed this project without any design guidelines because I did have historical architecture experience. When we began this project, we went through the mass and scale and materials and details, and we was approved for everything. At that time, no parking was required. We did do a zone lot amendment of 2 lots. So everything was approved. It was after we was approved that when it went through the conceptual site planning stage, there was some law, something about combining the property, and then parking was required. From that, it went from 11 cars to 13 cars to 16 cars, and then 18 cars, and then 19 cars. From that, we did do a zoning petition, which was denied in March of 2016. So from there, I had met with many city officials who was going to work with us. At that time, they was thinking about putting a parking structure over where East Side Health Clinic is. So we was kind of waiting on that. In the meantime, I explored some other alternatives for this. And what you see today is, you know, without going through all that, what you see today is just working with the staff, the project coordinator who started out being Greg Savage, and then working with Tiffany Holcomb, who took over after him as he retired. So I came up with this parking carousel idea. So we kind of integrated everything, changed the building around in the rear just to accommodate the parking, which is required by zoning and which is beyond our control. So as we did this project, we took advantage of some parking reduction. This is why the change of use was changed from the first floor and the second floor. The first floor went from like a male grooming salon to an eating and drinking establishment, which gave us a parking reduction. So basically, we have met most of the zoning requirements. So then I needed to come back and then work with landmark staff. So what you see here is what we did. Brittany kind of explained everything as what I worked through this. And part of this was to try to integrate the parking structure in with the building. And so for that, I think that We extended the concept of the approved submittal. I think that we met all the requirements. And so I don't want to say too much more, but if there's any questions, I'm open to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, this is Brad. I actually have a question on the, let me see if I'm going to get my sides right here. The, let's see, the other one, I think it's the south elevation.
Okay.
Right, oh, go right back, actually. Sorry, Brittany. There was 2 windows that were added right there in the current proposal, and they're kind of bumped up compared to the other ones, so their head height's different. Is that an intentional move, or they just were located in the wrong area? I just wondered if they were supposed to be kind of consistent head heights there, or if that was what the intent was.
Are you talking about on the 4th and 5th level?
Yep, right there where the circle is.
Oh, that's probably a glitch.
Glitch, yeah. So
we didn't put that up there like that. They would have all been aligned. I never noticed that. Yeah.
Yep. So that everything there is just the same head height as it goes across.
Yes,
the
it would
facade.
be. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? No? All right. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you.
Are there any public comments?
Yeah, Keith has his hand raised, so I'll ask him to unmute. Keith, whenever you are ready. Let me just switch it to 2 minutes. Okay.
Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, speaking on my own behalf. So a couple of things with that window that Brittany just highlighted there. Yes, that is a concern given the height. And so we'd want to make sure that they are in line. The other piece is if you look to the left of those windows with the front paired windows and how those match and there's space in between that paired window, I think that there should be that same spacing to give it a better rhythm and how it would fit better with the patterning of what is found not only below, but also within that 4th and 5th story addition. So having them paired with no spacing in between, I don't think really fits with what the intent of the building is, nor with what the district has and how we're pairing windows, not only on this building, but within the district. And then I have a concern and a question. I want to make sure that it is red stucco on the rear of the building to blend with the existing brick as it is shown in the renderings, but I don't think that it's necessarily called out to that. And then that rear, I don't know if it's a cornice, but between the 2nd and 3rd floor, you have your horizontal banding, and then it looks like there's a balcony or something that has a more ornate cresting on the rear of the building that matches that of the front of the building. And so it doesn't really kind of fit with the banding that is carrying through that 2nd to 3rd story transition. And it's looking more like the 3rd story cornice. And to have that elaborate of a detail of a cornice on the back of the building at that level, I think it should align more with the 3rd story cornice that is on the carousel of the parking structure. And so I guess I wanted clarification as to what that cornice is on that 2nd story on the rear of the building and how that transitions to the banding,
Okay.
the banding on the 2nd.
Thanks, Keith. I think the timing is up for the comment. Thank you. All
And we have
right.
another comment from Lynn Brunning. I apologize if I said your name incorrectly. I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself.
Thank you for taking my comment. I appreciate that. Lynn Bruning, 2955 Welton Street, Denver 80205. I'd just like some clarification, please. In that, I believe, yes, genuine stucco is permitted within the historic district, but there's also questions of ease of maintenance and longevity of the materials and being able to access it to do maintenance. And does the commission feel that that's appropriate on the 4th and 5th floors? It's also important to note that the drawing that was shown, I believe it was sheet LM4, it's had the image of 2800 Welton, and that property has subsequently been renovated, and they did remove all of the stucco on that particular project, so that has gone back to the historic brick and showing the original murals. And there was one other question, if I have a minute. Oh, when zoning did deny the parking, it was deficient 13 of 18 spaces. So I don't know if the use has changed significantly and if the project will actually have to even go back in front of Board of Adjustments to have the appropriate number of parking. But I assume the architect has done that check because of the carousel and the time and expense of that project. And that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn. Are there any other public comments?
Their hands raised.
Okay. Well, maybe before we move. Oh, sorry, Brittany, did you have something?
I just wanted to address Keith's comment. The stucco on the parking carousel structure will be painted to be the red brick. It's probably hard to see in this, but this note, let me see if I can annotate again. Pen. This note here says match brick veneer color adjacent to that. So it will be red to match the red brick. And then I've also talked to the applicant about this cornice. So this is the mechanical room here. There will be some mechanical in the room and then some mechanical on the rooftop. So the applicant is using that more decorative cornice to conceal some of that mechanical a little bit more. But it is a conversation I did have with the applicant if the commission also has concerns over that cornice.
Thanks, Brittany. Do you know, Lynn had brought up, the number of parking spaces. Do you know if the applicant has resolved that with zoning, or should we ask the applicant?
I would ask the applicant, but as far as I'm aware, this project is going through concept and SDP, and we've been involved in all of those, so it should be okay at this point.
Okay. Could we?
Yeah, I'll
get back. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. So, Mr. Brown, you'll need to unmute yourself whenever you're ready. Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What's the question?
Sorry. The question was, so I'm going to paraphrase and might be doing a bad job, but essentially it sounded like when you went through the SDP process, or as you're going through the SDP process, you were notified that you were deficient parking spaces per zoning requirements. And we're just wondering, does this carousel resolve all of the zoning requirements for parking?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great.
Yes.
That was a quick, easy question.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Okay, so if there aren't any other public comments, let's go ahead and move into deliberation. What is everybody's thoughts on this? Maybe let's start with the windows. Brad, you had brought up those two windows that had a higher head height, and it sounds like that'll be resolved. Maybe we should make it a condition just to ensure that that works. But I think I had the same concern. And then Keith brought up the spacing of windows. I don't know, did anyone have any concerns with that?
I think that this is Brad. I mean, I think that the comments, we're just talking about those two windows. I think that the spacing could be, if you look in the plan, there is some room probably in there to go and space the windows if we thought that was important. But I think that the other thing that I was looking at here is there is a strong datum, and it separates kind kind of the base from the top. So I wasn't personally as concerned with that as an issue, having those windows all aligned, just more of getting the head height kind of aligned. If that makes any sense.
Yep, that makes sense. I'm comfortable with that as well. Does everyone feel the same way about that?
Yep.
Okay, great. Then let's talk about the parking carousel and that rear area with the mechanical and the cornice enclosure there. What was everybody's thoughts about that? Are you comfortable with it as designed? Or I had some concerns about the cornice as well. I felt that that seemed out of place. It seemed very overscaled and ornate for something to be at the rear of the building, and didn't pick up on anything with the building. I know it kind of aligns with part of the brick banding, but it seems to kind of come out of nowhere there. So I have no problem with a parapet, but I feel like the cornice may be out of place at the rear.
Kelly, this is Brad. I agree with you. I have no problems with the carousel in the back. I think it's it'll be really interesting to see that work because I've heard of lots of people trying to get the carousel system to work out. So it's really exciting to see that. I agree with you that the cornice is out of place. I think that is really an element that's on the front of the building at the third story, and it's best to keep it there. And then on the back side, I just would simplify it, take the parapet height, up a little higher if you're trying to hide some mechanical equipment there, but just keep it very simple. That would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, this is Graham. I agree. I think the continuity there, even to the carousel itself, in spite of its kind of simple to complex to simple again, would feel much more balanced than just a continuous simple band.
Agreed, and I think just to kind of bring it back to the guidelines, I think that would fit better with the historic context because you don't find an ornate cornice at the rear like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, were there any other topics on this that we need to discuss? We saw some light fixtures.
Reduction of the building length. So that was part of what Brittany had on here. I mean, I think it seems like it works really well. So I don't have any issues with that revision either.
Great. Well, if there's no further discussion, would someone like to try a motion?
Madam Chair, I will try a motion. Let's see, we want to add a condition for our rear cornice then, is that correct?
Yes, it sounds like it. And
align the head height of those windows that were added.
Yeah, that was likely a drafting error, right? We'll make a note or a comment of that. Perfect. So Madam Chair, I move to approve application number 2021-COA-060 for the revisions to the approved infill project at 2810 Welton Street per design guidelines standards, or design standards and guidelines, 4.1, 4.40, 4.42, 4.46, 4.57, 4.59, 4.45 through 5.45 through 5.47, 5.67, 5.70, 5.74, character defining features for the 5 points cultural historic district, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following 2 conditions. 1, that head height for windows on the upper floors be consistent as discussed. And 2, that the cornice on the rear of the building be simplified to a simple band to wrap the new addition at the rear.
thank you, Graham. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Anne. All right, I will go ahead and call for the vote. Jeanette?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Graham?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
And Kelly? Aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the project is conditionally approved. All right, the next project on the agenda is 2021-COA-059 at 1400 Josephine. And we've got Brittany again.
So our next project is at the Bosworth House, which is an individual landmark at the corner of 14th and Josephine Street. You can see the property here and aerial, and then the front of the house from Josephine Street. The house was originally built in 1896, and it's undergone an extensive renovation in the last few years. Staff reviewed the majority of the work administratively. This property does have a somewhat irregular landmark boundary, which principally includes the back half of the parking lot to the north, but what we will be looking at today is just related to the primary structure and this 1951 auditorium building. So the Bosworth House was designed by Ernest Philip Varian and Frederick J. Sterner. It was designated as a Denver landmark in 1974. The house was owned by Lenora Bosworth, and in 1947, upon her death, she bequeathed the house to the American Association of University Women, which was an organization she was significantly involved in. The American Association of University Women was founded by Marion Talbot in 1881 in Chicago, Illinois, and it was had the goal to advance and encourage more women to participate in higher education. By 1949, the AAUW had 1,097 branches, including the Denver branch, which was located here at 1400 Josephine. The AAUW actually constructed the auditorium building that you see here and used this as their base and clubhouse. By 1966, the property was sold to the Assistants League of Denver, who actually rented out the auditorium space. So this is a application for retroactive approval to close up some of those project scopes associated with the very extensive renovation that occurred on this property. So the applicant is requesting retroactive approval for mechanical equipment between the historic primary structure and the auditorium building, which is in this small space that you see here. They're also requesting approval for electrical panels, which are located on the back of the house. The infill of 2 windows on the north elevation at the back of the house, and then a window on the rear of the house. And then also new mechanical equipment located in front of the auditorium building. So this is the electrical panels that were installed on the back of the house. The applicant has painted them to blend in with the building facade, and they are located on the rear of the building and will have limited visibility from the public right away. So staff do not have concerns over their mechanical electrical panels that they have located at the rear of the building. That does meet the design guidelines. This is the interior mechanical space that is located between the auditorium and the primary historic house. This is not visible from the public right away, and the majority of the mechanical equipment is located in this space. It is meeting our design standards and guidelines for screening mechanical equipment from the public right away. And really, you would only ever be able to see this from inside the actual buildings. So we don't have concerns over the mechanical equipment that was placed within this interior site space. Here are the windows that were infilled with a stone panel. So on the north elevation, a basement window at the rear of the building was infilled with a stone panel. That panel is inset into the building facade, and you can clearly see where the original opening was. And then on the rear of the house, under the rear porch, a ground floor window was also infilled with a stone panel, again, inset into the building facade. You can clearly see the original building proportions. Both of these windows have very limited visibility from the public right-of-way, and our guidelines do talk about flexibility for changes for windows on secondary elevations. So we feel that these alterations were appropriate. The window in the basement, I'm not entirely sure why it was infilled, but the window on the rear of the house on the ground floor was infilled because that's where the kitchen is located, just behind that refrigerator that you can see there. So what we do have concerns over, and the principal reason why we have forwarded this application to the commission today for review, is the placement of these units on the auditorium building. So one fronts onto 14th Street and one fronts onto Josephine Street. So they're very tall units, as you can see here. They did previously replace 2 mechanical units that were located along 14th Street, which you can see 2 images of those, but they are in totally new locations. And our guidelines do talk about not placing mechanical units on primary facades. These are very tall and they are very visible from the public right-of-way. The applicant has screened them with vegetation. That vegetation has been in for a few years, and you can see the screening that it's providing currently. Landmark staff have suggested a metal screen that replicates the design of the fencing, or a basket weave brick screening wall to screen these units, as it would be very difficult to relocate them. It would significantly interfere with their existing ductwork. But they are currently not meeting the design standards and guidelines. So this is why we have forwarded this application to the commission today. So here you can see an image of the old units, and then on the left, and then an image of the new units on the right. So staff are recommending approval with conditions, with the condition that the 2 mechanical units along East 14th Avenue be removed from the project scope, or more extensive screening be provided for these units, as they're highly visible from 14th Street and Josephine Street.
Thanks, Brittany. Are there any questions for staff? No. All right. Can we promote the applicant? And if you could please start with your name and address for the record. You can go ahead and unmute yourself. You have up to 10 minutes.
Hi, my name is Natalie Lord. I'm a preservation architect with Formworks Design Group. My address is 8441 McDougall Street, Denver, Colorado 80229. So I was the project architect on the 1400 Josephine project. It was reviewed, the original mechanical drawings were reviewed and approved by Landmark. However, during construction, the owner decided to value engineer the system. So originally there weren't going to be these units on the facade that you're seeing. But since then, now there are. So we've discussed the item with the owner, and they are willing to look at screening walls and materials to resolve the issue. And if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Thank you. All right, are there any questions for the applicant? Yeah, Anne.
Hi, this is Anne. Is there a technical reason that the units are so high up off of the slab?
Yeah, I believe the this is just the manufacturer's standard mounting detail. So again, these kind of came in to the project later, but to get them off the ground and get the airflow that they need, this was the installation method. And just to expand on Brittany's comment, so they did plant these bushes last summer. So I believe the recommendation says they went in 2017, but they've actually only been in for 1 year, just to add that.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. All right. Thanks for your time. Are there any public comments for this project?
Raised.
No hands raised? Okay.
No hands raised.
All right, then let's go ahead and move into deliberation. What did everybody think? Maybe let's go through in chunks. So there was the infill of the 2 windows, which staff didn't have any issue with. I assume we all agree with staff on that. They're not on primary facades. And you can still see where the original opening was. So I see nodding heads. So we'll go ahead and move forward. Then there was a few other mechanical condensing units installed, but those are not visible from the public right of way. So I assume we're all good with that. Okay, then let's talk about these 2 units that face along East 14th. What did everybody think?
Madam Chair, I'm happy with staff recommendation. I would support staff recommendation.
Okay. And so they put in the plant material. It's been there for a year. We typically don't approve plant material as a screening.
Right.
So for that reason, I would agree with the staff recommendation as well.
Yeah. The only clarification
I agree too.
that I might just chime in to Anne's question earlier. Sometimes, and for ground mount, different than a roof mount, but mechanical code also requires the equipment high enough that drifting snow or other kind of weather that might obscure that it's protected from that. So again, I don't know that I've seen it mounted off the ground like that. It looks more like a typical roof mount, but that is a consideration that we've encountered on some previous projects also.
Good point, Graham.
I totally appreciate that. To me, in a funny way, the one facing 14th Street, you can kind of see how the screening could work. The one facing Josephine is so disrespectful on every level of the building. You know, had it been turned 90 degrees, you could kind of even understand how it was going to be screened, or had it been pulled out from underneath the eave. So the reason I asked the question, obviously, is it just looks like it's crashing into the eave and everything else. And I guess I would want to make sure that the applicant had explored everything they could about rotating it or lowering it or moving it out or doing something else to make it respect the building.
Is that a question you have for the applicant? Or, well, Brittany, go ahead. What were you going to say?
So I can answer some of that, probably not all of it. So the applicant did look at originally placing these at the rear of the property. The issue with the placement of the rear of the property is how close the adjacent property is. So per zoning, they couldn't place them at the rear because of the noise of the units. So this is that adjacent property that's resulting in that issue. I did ask them about rotating them to not be in their current configuration and place them horizontally. And I had that discussion with them over a year ago, and I was told it wasn't feasible, but I don't quite remember the reason why. So
if you'd like, we can ask Natalie.
Okay, great.
Okay, Natalie, I'm gonna unmute you whenever, or you have to unmute yourself.
Can you
whenever you're ready? Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, so I can definitely ask that question again about rotating the one. So one thing that you can't see is there is a tree. Let's see if we go to the photo, maybe on the last page, I believe. Okay,
I don't
so
have
that's
everything in here, but the commission has everything in front of them.
that last page you're just on, the top left photo. If you can zoom in on that, maybe there is a tree to the left of that unit that sort of does block it better from Josephine Street. So I actually, obviously I'm not on the commission or anything, but I actually think that's better than rotating it 90 degrees and having more view of it off of 14th, because I think that tree does kind of help. But we can definitely, if that's one of your conditions, we can ask about rotating it 90 degrees and if there's any possibility of lowering it.
Okay, thanks. Anne, does that answer your question?
Right. As I said, to me, and thank you very much. That was a really, it was nice to get that information, because to me, the one that's facing 14th looks, I think the screening of it, if there's some kind of brick screening or metal screening, whatever the staff recommends, that one seems like it's gonna fit in fine. But this one on facing Josephine, just to me, it would be nice to get a little more exploration out of it. So thank you. That's very useful.
Great. Okay. So if there aren't any further questions, let's keep deliberating then. So it sounded like several of us were in agreement with the staff recommendation. And do you agree with that, or do you think that, are you kind of leaning towards looking at other solutions like rotating the unit?
Well, again, I'm the only one that I think is in question is the one facing Josephine, and if I'm the only person who feels that it needs to be studied a little bit more.
What does everybody? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Exactly. Thank you.
Sorry about that. What does everyone else think? Don't all talk at once.
I think it's kind of an interesting corner there because you do have the lower kind of single story up against, the back of the house, or you're tucked in the corner either way. So turning it, but keeping the spacing off the wall that is necessary for that airflow on the backside may kind of introduce a similar condition perpendicular. If you were to turn it, you still probably couldn't tuck it, tight under the eave. Would maybe just be one piece of the constructability side of it, because it's kind of it's a challenging corner for sure for airflow. But it would align with the eave that's lower and more engaged at the sidewalk if it was 90 degrees.
So, Madam Chair, having installed a couple of these on older houses, I agree with Graham. I see what Anne's saying for sure. But it is a challenging corner, and I think the screen could work well here. I think there's no harm in recommending or asking the applicants to consider other things that, like we've talked about, like Anne has suggested. But I am fine with the screen because I know how hard these things are. And, we've got, this is code stuff too. So
I would agree. The only thing I would add is if we're going to require them to screen it anyway, if they rotate it 90 degrees and then have to screen it, then that screening is going to move closer towards Josephine Street because the unit will be closer once it's rotated 90 degrees. And those enclosures require a certain amount of clearance around the units. So I think that's just going to end up moving the screening closer to the primary facade. So I would be in support of them staying where they are and just pursuing screening.
Yeah,
I would second that as well, because I think not only would it move it closer to Josephine, but it's going to become a more complicated shape of screen potentially, and a greater amount of it rather than trying to keep it as minimal as possible. Whereas this could be kind of an L-shaped screen. If you rotate it, it's either a much larger volume of an L or it's going to become kind of a zigzag.
Yeah.
Which I think it would be distracting.
All right, if there aren't any further comments, who's going to make the motion?
Madam
I
Chair.
can make the motion.
Okay, go
Nope,
ahead.
go ahead.
Okay, Madam Chair, I will make the motion. I move to conditionally approve application number 2021-COA-059 for the retroactive approval for mechanical equipment in the equipment yard, electrical panels, and 2 infield windows at 1400 Josephine Street as per design guidelines 2.14, 2.6, character defining features for the Bosworth House, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report, with the condition the 2 mechanical units along East 14th Avenue are removed or screened more adequately per design guideline 5.17.
Thank you, Julie. Do we have a second?
Second.
Graham, did you say that?
Did, sorry, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Graham. I will call for the vote. Jeanette?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Graham?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
Kelly? Aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the motion passes. So the project is conditionally approved. All right, our last project of the day is 2021-COA-066 at 2942 Welton Street. And we've got Abby.
Okay, good afternoon. So project under review includes a 2-story rear addition behind 2942 and 2944 Welton Street, a roof deck at 2942 Welton, and site modifications. So here you have both an aerial view showing the property as well as a facade view showing the buildings from the street. So the applicant is proposing to combine 3 lots. There's a zone lot amendment pending, which will probably come to you at the next meeting, and construct a 2-story addition across the rear of the lots. The 2-story addition will be located perpendicular to the existing buildings. 2944 Welton Street is a historic residential structure. That's the blue structure, which was constructed circa 1886, according to assessor records. 2942 Welton Street, the red structure, is a historic commercial structure constructed circa 1890 based on Sanborn maps. The assessor records list a construction date of 1967, but this appears to be the date that the rear addition was constructed, not the date of the original structure. And a courtyard is currently located on the lot adjacent to 2942 Welton. 2942 and 2944 Welton are identified as Main Street character buildings within the 5 Points Historic Cultural District. The district only has 9 buildings identified as contributing structures, but according to the district guidelines, Main Street character buildings are any commercial buildings built within the district's period of significance prior to and including 1964. These buildings add to the Main Street character of the district. Most of these 1 to 2-story buildings historically had a mixture of uses. Often they were originally residential buildings that had commercial storefronts. These buildings are non-contributing buildings in the district, but are encouraged to be retained and reused whenever possible. Because integrity is not a specific objective, additional flexibility may be appropriate for projects involving these buildings. Sorry, advancing slides on Zoom, it's always a little finicky. It's not wanting to cooperate. Okay, there we go. So here you have the existing plan and the proposed site plan. So the addition will be set back approximately 67 feet from the front of the lot. The historic structures at 2942 and 2944 Welton will remain unchanged, with the only physical impacts to the circa 1967 rear addition of 2942 Welton. 2944 Welton will remain a separate structure, accessing the new addition via a rear courtyard. At 2942 Welton, the addition will connect to the rear 1967 addition, adding a second story to that rear addition. The new addition will be accessed via the side courtyard. While access via courtyard is atypical, it maintains the existing condition, with the primary entrance for 2942 Welton currently located from the courtyard. This was previously relocated in 2006 with LPC approval. The project includes site work alterations within the courtyard, including an ADA ramp and planters, as well as the creation of a new stone-paved rear courtyard behind 2944 Welton. There will also be parking to the rear. Okay, sorry, yeah, there's a real lag there in advancing the slides. So here you have the existing and proposed. So the addition will feature a 2-story height and a flat roof behind 2944 and 2942 Welton, with a single-story shed roof at the courtyard. Flat roofs are characteristic of the district, and the shed roof echoes the gable forms that are also characteristic of the district. No R&O is registered to participate in the landmark design review process for the 5 Points Cultural Historic District. So there was not any landmark referrals made for the project. Typically, this would have been considered a rooftop addition and would have had a referral. But the applicant did, communicate with a lot of the, neighborhood organizations and has presented their plans and includes a summary on page 14 of the application of their contact with the various neighborhood organizations. Okay, waiting to see if the slides are going to advance. Okay, there it goes. So here are the plans of the front and the rear. The addition will be clad in stucco, which will match the existing buildings at 2942 and 2944 Welton, which have both been clad in stucco at an unknown date. The applicant is proposing to use multiple colors and textures of stucco on the addition, with the plans calling out textured white, smooth white, and textured gray stucco. The shed roof will be clad in standing seam metal roofing, though no detail on the specific roofing profile or finish of the metal was included in the application. Staff finds the metal appropriate for this use, but feel that we need more detail on the exact, there's a lot of different styles of standing seam roofing and a lot of different finishes. Staff would recommend one that is more matte and not highly reflective, and with a more historic profile to the standing seam. So that detail is needed. The windows will be aluminum and the trim will be metal. No information was provided on the door material, so staff also needs that information. Lighting locations have been identified in the application, but no lighting details were provided. And there you have the side elevation, so you can see there the shed standing seam metal roof. So here we have the roof plan. So a roof deck measuring about approximately 13 feet by 24 feet will be added on top of the circular 1967 addition, forward of the new rear addition. The deck will be set back from the street, but oriented toward Welton Street, meeting the design guidelines for the district. However, additional detail is needed on the railing at the rooftop deck. Some drawings in the application show the deck is enclosed by a mesh railing, while the elevation drawings show a railing with vertical pickets. So we need a railing detail with materials. And then here's a close-up illustration of the facade. So One concern staff has with the design is the stucco that's proposed. So the applicant is proposing to use textured stucco at the parapet as a contemporary interpretation of a cornice. Staff do not find this to be successful. Historically, stucco was not a material used for cornice details. When stucco was found on cornices, it's generally a later covering over a historic cornice detail. Also, using multiple stucco textures and colors is not a historic feature of the district. Landmark, generally requires materials be as simple as possible. Landmark also generally requires that wall materials have a smooth finish. The textured band of stucco is much wider than what the dimensions of a typical cornice feature would be, and thus does not proportionally resemble a cornice. Staff finds that the change in stucco and the change in color give the building a contemporary commercial character that's not compatible with the district and draws unnecessary attention to the addition rather than receding into the background behind the historic structures. So staff would recommend just simplification of this using a single color and a single texture of stucco rather than having that texture at the top. Staff had previously discussed with the applicant also using a metal cornice at the top, a really, just kind of simple metal band. Staff was also fine with that option. We thought that the simple metal band at the top was also successful, but they chose to go with this textured stucco option instead, which staff did not find appropriate for the building. So the applicant did include a study of various other cornices in the district, both on historic buildings and on contemporary buildings to kind of show traditional stucco designs, cornice designs that they're trying to replicate with their stucco feature. But again, staff just didn't really feel that this worked. So here, final illustration. So overall, staff finds the mass and form of the addition to be compatible with the district. It's set back significantly from the street, around 67 feet, reducing its impact on 2942 and 2944 Welton Street and the district. So staff finds this is really successful. It's keeping two buildings that are Main Street character buildings that are technically non-contributing, would not have to be kept, but they are and being incorporated into this new use. So staff finds that this is a really successful mix of working with the existing buildings as well as creating an addition that will substantially increase the square footage on the lot. While 2942 and 2944 Welton are single-story buildings, the proposed two-story addition is within the range of typical heights found along Welton Street. And due to the setback of the addition from the street, the alignment of windows, doors, and storefront patterns isn't really a significant issue here because they're not going to have any immediately adjacent structures. So staff is recommending approval with two conditions: that the stucco is all smooth finish with a single stucco color used, and that the additional material detail mentioned in the staff report, which includes material details for doors, detail on the lighting, detail on the roofing, and detail on the deck railing, be included in the final application.
Thanks, Abby. Are there any questions for staff? Yeah, Anne.
Abby, can you just confirm, and I think this is right, what is the period of significance for commercial buildings in 5 Points?
Well, there's not, because this is an interesting district, there's just the 9 contributing buildings, and then everything else is non-contributing. So there's not, like kind of the same period of significance that we have in our other districts.
And I had a question about the condition for all stucco to be smooth and a single color to be used. So it sounded like you also had some concerns about having a stucco cornice in general. Does just removing the texture and making it one color address all your concerns, or were you actually concerned with them using stucco at the cornice or the size of it?
Well, what we were really concerned, sorry, for the different changes in the screen. I'm trying to pull up the applicant presentation. But what we were really concerned about was the idea of using textured stucco as, you know, as a cornice, because that's drawing emphasis to that feature. We feel if it was all smooth, at least that's just going to be one simple, solid building facade that will kind of fade. And that we felt that that like wide stucco band was kind of calling attention.
Okay, and this may be a question for the applicant, so just let me know if that's the case, but do you know if it's integral color stucco or if they're painting the stucco?
That was not clear in the application.
Okay, I'll ask the applicant. Thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions for staff? No? All right, it looks like you have your name and address for the record, and you have up to 10 minutes.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me? Excellent. My name is Joseph Maltano. I live at 3074 Forest Street in Park Hill. I want to thank the commissioners for your time today, and I really want to thank staff, particularly Abby, for supporting us along the way here on this journey. And it looks like maybe some slides have been dialed up for me, which is fantastic. What I'd like to do is refer to these as I move through my my points. I'm mostly going to focus on some of the things that Abby mentioned that the staff has concerns with. The first one is guideline 3.29, indicating that the alignment of our windows and doors is really not that important since the building is set back so far from the facade. But I thought it was worth noting that we did put a great deal of time into evaluating the size, location, and proportion of the windows. And this might not be obvious since the project is a bit of an anomaly, but I thought it was worth sharing with you. For example, on page 6, there's this pattern that emerges when you look at the east side of Welton Street between 29th and 30th, where the commercial structures have this, you know, window, window, and the residential units have a door, window. So it's almost like a, you know, an BAB pattern on the commercial properties and then a ABB on the residential, and it's fairly consistent. And the cadence, I think, is consistent. On page 7, we looked at the emerging vernacular of the district to gain some clues as well, since we're being charged with, you know, meeting the intent that building addition is of current construction. And then page 8, I think, does a good job of showing the importance of transparency for the addition that is in the open space as it faces Welton Street. So these are all views towards Welton Street from that building addition at the rear. And it's guideline 5.10 that talks about designing open space to be active, orienting the open space to pedestrian activities and views to the street, and providing a clear connection between open space, pedestrian routes, and the main entrance. So if we go to page 36, in the lower right corner, you see that the building addition that's in the 25-foot space of the open yard, we are proposing to be all glass from floor to ceiling. And that's intentional so that we maintain that connection with that pedestrian activity. On page 26, you can get a sense of this as well. You can see the rhythm that I mentioned earlier with the window, door, window, door, window. I think if you go to page 34, you can kind of gather this a little bit. So here, the straight on view, you can see the window, door at the upper level in the back where we have the commercial building addition, and then the all transparent addition that's in the 25-foot module. It looks like, are we on page 30? Good. This will work. So in response to guideline 3.31D and the staff's comments about our choice of finish on the building skin, we agree that stucco is not a material used for cornice details historically. Using multiple stucco textures and colors is not a historic feature of the district. We agree with that as well. We agree that changing stucco color gives the building a contemporary commercial character. Where we disagree, respectfully, is on the comment about compatibility. We disagree that the stucco patterning and texture will draw attention away from the historic structures. The cornice is really intended to be an extremely subtle shift in texture, and the color will not change. The color only changes on the rear and sides of the building, which cannot be seen from Welton Street. And you can see that here. This is the facade that faces Welton Street, and there's no change to the color, just a very subtle shift at the top of the building in texture, which guideline 3.32 talks about, adding visual just through texture. If we go to page 37, we'll be seeing the north and south elevations. One more, I think.
I'm not finding it in here.
Oh, is it after this one? There we go. Yeah,
Okay.
So the north and south elevations have a change of color at the base. There we go. You can see that there with a darker gray, slightly darker gray color. And as you go back to page 36, thanks for bearing with me, Abby. On page 36, actually go forward.
Sorry, it's really finicky changing pages on Zoom.
There you go. You got it. So here you can see the color change of the east elevation, which faces the alley at the base of the building. I'm looking at the image on the upper left. So you might ask, well, why not just keep one color as staff is recommending? So the color shift here is entirely a graffiti resistance mechanism. That's all this is. You may have noticed some other pictures in our packet that the back of our building gets tagged regularly. And we're afraid that if we have a white canvas that comes down to grade, that we would be tempting taggers, and it would be difficult to paint over that and cover that up on a regular basis. And then, back to the texture, why are we adding texture? We just feel that, and maybe this is just subjective, but we feel that having some sort of cornice will add a sense of quality and craftsmanship to this otherwise fairly plain box in the back. And yes, we did consider a standing seam metal cornice, and we talked about that with the local design review committee, and they were not in favor of that. So we did abandon that idea. So again, we agree that the building addition should not draw attention away from the historic structures. We just don't believe that the moves we've made will do that. Okay, and then staff mentioned a number of things that are missing in our proposal. I want to make sure that, we're happy to submit more detail, but I want to make sure that you do see some of the things that are in there. So first, it's the lack of the identified manufacturer for the opening wall system. There's a reason for this. So that's the system that you see in the lower right. All those doors are intended to open up. And as an office building that's being designed for use as a creative studio environment, the tenant in this case aspires to fabricate a few of these components themselves under the supervision of a general contractor. So the opening wall system is one of these components, and we don't have a manufacturer listed because we intend to fabricate this ourselves as a custom unit. But I can explain the intent. If we go to page 13, there should be a picture of our existing building. And if you look closely, the storefront that's there in that masonry wall, those aluminum panels, so it's 1-inch insulated glazing and an extruded aluminum, clear anodized aluminum frame. That's the look. That's what we would match. In fact, that system is going to be removed and replaced somewhere else in the building itself. So that's the intent of the doors. If we go to page 40, we didn't include separate details for the doors, but what we did is kind of sneaky. It says typical window and door detail combined. And the reason we did that is to save space, really. It's same system, an aluminum storefront system. The only thing that's missing there, of course, is the door itself. Staff also mentioned no roofing details. If we could go to page 33. In the lower left there, you can see the profile of the metal. It's a standing seam system. We're specifying 12 inches on center, 2 inches tall, and then the color is this slate gray, and the material is galvalume. So it will have a very dull, non-reflective look. And if you go, I think it is to the next page, there's a press image there on the right in the middle that kind of nails the look that we're searching for. And then, yes, admittedly, we have no lighting details. Happy to provide those. Those are currently only conceptualized. And then as far as the deck and railing, yes, again, this happens to be another one of the passion projects that we hope to build ourselves, hence no details. So I'd be happy to hear any sort of feedback from the commission today on your thoughts about that. So that's it. In closing, I just want to reiterate, we met and presented to and communicated with several neighborhood organizations. I personally went door to door to all the properties on our block on Welton, as well as the west side of Glenarm, across the alley. And it was through those encounters and discussions that, really informed the design that's being presented to you today. So thank you for your time. I'll turn it over for questions.
Thank you. All right, are there any questions for the applicant? Well, I'll just start with the one that I had asked Abby. So is the stucco integral color, or are you painting it? Integral?
No paint. Please, no paint. Integral.
Great, I agree. I just wanted to check. Because when we're talking about having multiple colors on the building, I was just curious. And we don't have paint under our purview, but integral color we do. So the other question I had is, you mentioned that at the rear of the building, the shift to gray is to try and mitigate tagging by graffiti. So how do you, I guess I'm not understanding how that's gonna, just because it doesn't look like a canvas, or is there some other like
right
coating applied that that's easier to clean graffiti off? Just curious.
Yeah, I think if you walk up and down our block, you'll see that in areas where there's color, a saturated hue, it's easier to then paint over the tag with that color to hide the tag. Where there's white or light color, you paint over it and you can still see a ghost of what's underneath.
I get it. Gotcha. Thanks. Anybody else have questions? No?
No.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments on this project?
No one has their hands raised yet, but I thought Lynn was interested in speaking. If you did, you should raise your hand. And Keith is also on, so I imagine he would want to. All right, Lynn has her hand raised.
Great.
Here we go. I'm going to ask you to unmute. And does that work? Yep.
Lynn
Whenever you're
Bruning,
ready.
2955 Welton. I'm directly opposite this project across Welton Street, and I support what they're doing, especially in keeping the courtyard open and the level of transparency that they promote and help activate on our block. And as somebody who gets tagged at least once a month, yeah, gray works. So I hope that this project goes through, and I look forward to seeing it completed. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, Keith, I just allowed you to unmute whenever you're ready.
Hi, Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, Denver, Colorado. I do sit on the Welton Design Review Committee, and will be chairing it going forward as Jill will be stepping down. There was lively discussion about the stucco versus a metal parapet, and there was not consensus on that. And we felt that the commission would be best to make that determination. And so, the applicant did go with the stucco, and so that's where they landed. Other than that, I do believe Jill sent in a letter of support for the project from the Welton Design Review Committee, and we are in support of the overall concept. So that's it.
Great, thank you.
Don't see
Any other
other
comments?
hands. Nope.
No other hands? Okay. All right, let's move into deliberation. And actually, before we do that, I'm just remembering that we never answered one of Lynn's questions on that she had on a previous project that she commented on Welton. I think she had asked whether the commission finds stucco to be an appropriate material to be maintained at high elevations, because levels 4 and 5 of that building were stucco. And I'm just now remembering, since we're looking at stucco in Welton again, that we never answered that. I guess maybe I'd just say that that was already approved on that building, so we weren't reviewing that today. That's like the easy answer. But I think that we have approved it on taller buildings before, as long as it's a genuine 3-coat stucco system. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on that, but I just thought I'd mention it. So if nobody else has comments about that, let's talk about the project at hand. What did everybody think?
I'll start.
Great.
I am not sure if I remember that we have reviewed anything in 5 Points that falls under this category of Main Street character building, but I think this is just a phenomenal project. And it's phenomenal in sort of capturing the spirit of something, because that's not something that we're usually tasked with doing. We're usually, the guidelines are usually much more prescriptive, I think, but when I look at this Main Street character building, to me, that has much more to it than just the physical manifestation. And I just think that this project takes these 2 little buildings, which are in many ways unremarkable, but it sort of makes them remarkable for being part of a street scene in a neighborhood. And I just think it's a terrific project. I don't have a problem with the cornice in stucco, because I think, again, I'm looking at this and it says Main Street character buildings, commercial buildings, the period of significance up to and including 1964. And for some reason, that building in the back really vibes 1964. So I'm all for the stucco cornice.
Yeah, I would echo Anne on that, and not being an architect, I don't read that as a cornice anyway. It's just like an upper element of the architecture. I think this is a really exciting project. And as the landscape architect on the commission, I really appreciate the open glassy box structure, continuing that open space to activate the street. So I'm in support of this project.
Madam Chair, this is Julie. When I saw this project, so I live just a couple of blocks from this, and when I every day that I go down Welton, I worry about those little tiny buildings. I just, like, how long is that one going to be there? When is that one going to disappear? And so when I saw these 2, they're not just incorporated, they're actually, in many ways, to me, the star. And I actually think there are 3 stars here. It's the 2 buildings and then that little open space, which I think everybody in the neighborhood appreciates, that little open space. I've never been invited to a party there, but it's really pretty, and I just am really excited about it. And I could go either way on the stucco. I do think it's really interesting. The sloped roof was an interesting choice for me, but I saw that the neighborhood group preferred that over a flat roof. And when I thought about it, I decided I really liked it. So I would support this.
Great. Any other thoughts?
Kelly, this is Brad. I'll chime in here. I support everything everybody has said so far. I think this is a really great project. Really appreciate the thoughtfulness that's been put into it, and the fact that during the presentation there was lots of discussion from the applicant about the guidelines, and the level of thought that was put into that is really appreciated. To kind of hit on a couple of the topics, I think the stucco is absolutely fine as a cornice. My personal preference would be just to keep it simple and not try to introduce too much. I'd just keep it one texture, one color. I think the gray on the back is fine, the way it wraps around and kind of terminates itself in the back of the shed volume there. I think that works just fine, and I don't have any issues with that. You know, Julie, I like the slope roof because of what it does to the neighboring properties. I think it's pretty respectful to those properties, so I was really supportive when I saw that. And then last thing I would say is the railing. I know that they have got to figure these details out, but I think as transparent as possible is really in keeping with the kind of the direction that they're going now with that side volume. It's very transparent and just kind of continuing that. And there's a really nice sense of layering with this project, with the texture of the old as it transitions kind of deeper into the site with the new. So I think that's really successful. So I was very supportive.
I would also support the design, and you know, I was leaning towards agreeing with the staff recommendations when we entered this meeting, but I think the applicant kind of persuaded me that I don't really see a problem with the different textures of stucco or the different colors, considering the changing colors only, you know, it's not facing the public right of way. And so I think the textures, when you're walking along the sidewalk, you're not going to notice the two different textures from from there. I think it being one uniform color will be enough for it to be kind of receding into the background. And yeah, I think I just echo what everybody says. You know, when I first looked at it, I was like, wow, this is kind of radical. Like, you know, it looks kind of contemporary, but then as you kind of break up the parts, you're like, you know, you've got the flat roof, you've got the shed roof that kind of mimics some of the gable forms that you see in the neighborhood. And I just started to think that it's really a good modern interpretation of some of the characteristics in the district. And this is a unique district. It's not like our other historic districts. So I think in this case, it's appropriate.
I agree with everything that's been said, but I can't add anything. So I just have to make some noise, I guess.
Well, so and you know, if we're all in agreement, that's fine, that's great. I mean, it sounds like there's a little differentiation between people who think it should be one color versus multiple, but I think the applicant was looking for a little bit of feedback about the railing, and Brad's the only person who maybe touched on that. Were there any other thoughts about the railing?
The railing is fine as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it sounds like they're still working on a design, right?
Yeah.
We've got like, you know, vertical pickets versus mesh. I'm not sure that I have a strong opinion either way, since it's set back so far from the street, as long as it's something simplified. But if anybody else feels strongly about that, please weigh in.
I guess I would agree with where Brad was going of having it transparent. And I kind of like the hinting of the mesh one where it's a lighter, airier feel than something more substantial like the pickets. I feel like that transparency reads better with the architecture to me, like something light, like physically, not like color light, but physically light in feeling. But I could go either way. That's just how I feel.
Okay. All right. And yeah, I don't know of a specific guideline to tie to it. So I think, you know, it sounds like there might be some leeway on that. Any other comments or actually, before we move forward with the motion, the conditions we're talking about needing additional materials or information on materials and details. And the applicant did point out a few details that were in the submittal. So maybe it sounds like we definitely need deck railing details and lighting. The doors are going to be fabricated by the applicant, but maybe they can clarify that in a for staff in order to issue the COA. So I think I guess I might be okay with the condition as written for that one, but if anybody else feels differently, chime in. Yeah, Anne.
I agree with you. I think it's really an amazing idea that they're going to fabricate that, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have details in advance.
Yeah.
And so just because it's not a manufacturer, so I would tend to leave that condition exactly as it is.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, good. Well, then
can I just say something briefly? So I totally agree. I missed the roofing. I missed the roofing details, so that's totally my fault. But just some of the other, also, there were the drawings for the, the big door feature, but there weren't like details on some of the other doors. Like you can see the door here to the balcony and stuff like that. So if there could just be door detail, make sure that details are included for all the doors.
Or a schedule, as you had mentioned. Yeah.
Either a schedule or drawings, and just call out and say, this is what we're going to manufacture this one ourselves, so that we know that.
Okay, great. All right, who's going to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Great.
If that's okay, unless there's someone else who wants to jump in. Aaron, do you want to make the motion because this is our real landscapey one? Okay, here we go. And just before I make the motion, am I correct that we're eliminating the first condition and just going with the second condition?
I don't know that we were 100% on the same page, but I think you should choose and we'll see how that goes. I think most people felt that way.
Okay. All right, Madam Chair. After all of that, I move to conditionally approve application number 2021-COA-066 for the addition and site work at 2942 Welton Street per design guidelines 3.23, 3.29, 3.30, 3.31, 4.21, and 5.10, character defining features for the 5 Points Cultural Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following condition: that additional material details be submitted for doors, lighting, roofing, and deck railing.
Thank you, Anne. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Madam Chair, I'll second it. Oh,
Erin beat you to it. Thank you, Erin.
Sorry, Jerry.
it's okay.
If there's no further discussion on the motion, then I'll call for the vote. Jeanette?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Graham?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
Kelly? Aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the project is conditionally approved. And that is the last design review project on our agenda today. Jen, do we have any?
Couple of quick updates. So first of all, we didn't do this because I was in a mad rush when we started because the Zoom invites got lost. But welcome back, Kelly.
Oh, thanks.
Nice to
Yay!
have you back.
Good to be back. Sorry I missed so much.
And for sure we need baby pictures. We only, I think, got the one that you sent originally. So, keep them coming, please.
I could just go grab her.
Yeah, there you go.
The other thing is that Jeanette has decided that it's time for her to retire. She is leaving Denver, I believe. I'll let Jeanette tell you guys about her adventures, but she had told me that today would likely be her last day, and that she, unless we had major quorum issues, and I begged her to come back, which is always entirely possible, but probably not probable. So I have a certificate that is made up for her, and I will drop it off to her house at some point. And at some point when timing is right, we can raise a glass to Jeanette virtually. Unfortunately, I think at this point, especially because it's cold, unless we all just want to go to a park somewhere. But anyway, Jeanette, if you'd like to fill people in, feel free.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So our family decided to move to Durango. We really want to be more in nature and in the mountains, and so we're under contract on a house there. It's sort of in the forest. It's completely different from my little historic district home, but we're really excited. I think it's going to be a really wonderful change for us, because nature is our family's thing. So we're moving, and I'm glad that we're moving someplace that is known for having a really neat historic district. But so I just did want to say it's been such a privilege to work with all of you. It's been a really wonderful experience for me to be on the commission. I've just been so impressed with, first of all, like the professionalism of the staff. I mean, the staff has done a really wonderful job, I think. And just being a part of this group has been really meaningful to me, because I think you've all done such a wonderful job of working so hard and paying such a close attention to everything, caring so much, being really respectful of one another, of applicants, of the history of our city, of staff. And so thank you for having me, and I'm going to really miss you all. And so thanks.
Oh, miss you too.
Yeah, we're gonna miss you. That's the last person that that was on the commission when I started. You're the last remaining vestige of that. Well, congratulations. That's so exciting.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we will very much miss Jeanette. She was a great addition to the commission 5 years ago, and has really helped, I think, shape the commission as well. And she's grown, and the commission's grown, and it's been a great 5 years. So thank you, Jeanette, for all that you have done.
Thank you.
And we're actively looking.
Fabulous.
We're actively looking for a replacement, because obviously we don't want you guys to be down to 8 for too long. So if you guys, we would love to find someone who is a resident of a historic district, or owns a historic building, or is a design professional, or a builder, or basically an attorney, and a whole lot of shoes to fill that could potentially be filled. So if you know people, send them our way. Feel free to talk up the commission to them, and we'll keep you posted. We also, so Anne and Aaron and Gary, who's not here, they are at the end of their first terms at the end of this month, and the mayor has renewed them for another 3 years. So thank you to the 3 of you for staying on for another 3 years. We are happy to have you for another 3, and unless you move away, we have you forever. No, just kidding. But yeah, thank you for staying. Oh, hello, puppy. And then the last piece, just housekeeping. We actually, Crystal did this, put together a SharePoint file that I'm going to try to share with you guys, of all of the Curtis Park DHA infill projects for the mass form and context that have been approved, not the ones that haven't been approved yet, but the ones that have been approved. And then as design details get approved, we'll put those in as well. So I'm going to try to share it with you. Bear with me. It's not my, I don't know much about SharePoint. I just am going to send you guys a link, and hopefully it works. And if it doesn't, let me know.
Thank you so much, because every time I try and remember what did we do before, and that's wonderful. So thank you, Crystal.
Welcome. It's not complete. So every staff member who's working on these projects are putting this stuff in. So what I'm going to send you is not complete, but just keep checking back.
Yeah, I also put a address list in there at the, there's a Word file that'll say who's assigned to which address. So if you have questions on any specific project, you'll know who to reach out to as well.
Great, I think that is it. So.
I also wanted to say thank you to Jeanette too. I'm really gonna miss your commentary and all your great comments.
Oh, thank you so much, Crystal. I'll miss you and all of the staff.
And so how soon do you move?
Hopefully April, but you know, we'll see. We'll see.
I was just wondering if there is any time for a outdoor get together.
Maybe. I mean, you never know with Denver spring weather, but
Yeah.
but that would be fun to work out.
Yeah.
And I mean, I plan to be coming back to Denver too. So, you know, if it didn't work out and then you guys wanted to like, you know, have some event that I could, you know, come to some other time, that's also, I can always come back as well.
Great.
I mean, not that I expect you to like schedule something especially for me, just putting it out there.
I think we're happy to schedule something just for you. So.
Yes.
Cool.
Great. Well, if that's everything, I guess I'll close the meeting.
Sounds good.
Gavel.